Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. Today's episode is a Christmas mega video. I have 30 cozy farmhouse Christmas DIYs that are sure to bring that farmhouse rustic feel to your Christmas decor. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. If you do like any of today's projects, remember to hit that thumbs up. But let's go make some DIYs. I want to make a really pretty display with some antique spools, which I don't have any of, so I'm going to create my own using some coasters, some of these Dollar Tree rounds, and then these are just a couple of ends from some bottle brush trees. These are inspired by a DIY my friend Patty from Patty J. Good did last year for Christmas, so I thought I would try my own. Now on these wood rounds from Dollar Tree, they have this hole drilled into them, so I'm just filling that in with some hot glue. You could use some spackling, or you could just leave it if it didn't bother you. Now on the center of my smaller spool, I am just using the end of a foam brush, like the little wooden handle. And for the other two sizes, this is a cardboard tube from the inside of some vinyl that I had with my cutting machine. I just used my hand saw and I cut it down to 2 different lengths. And I'm just using my fingernail file to clean up any of that raw cardboard edge, so that way I have a nice clean edge to work with. And then they will be staggering heights. Kind of hard to tell right here, but you'll see in the end display. These coasters came from Hobby Lobby. They are currently in stock in the fall kitchen area. They're 40% off, so if you're wanting to grab those, I just removed all of the little non-slip stickies on the bottom of them, so that way you have a nice clean surface to work with. When I glued the tubes on, I did use hot glue on all of these, but I will say that I think if I had to do this over again, I would use a little more of a permanent glue, like a Gorilla Glue, maybe some E6000 or a combination. I feel like these will hold fine for one season with the hot glue, but to store them year after year, I feel like maybe a more permanent glue would be a better option for you, so just take note of that. I wanted to have a variation in the stains on all of them, the different colors, the different wood tones, because I feel like when you see displays like at Vintage Market Days or the antique fairs, you see displays of these old spools, there is a lot of variation in the different colors, different types, and so I thought in different textures even. So I thought having like the beaded edge on the one and the different colors was a really fun, like eye-catching element to them. So now I'm just going to tear some different fabrics. I kind of went with Christmas tones in the fabrics, reds, greens, so that way you could really make these for any season if you wanted to keep them out year round. It would be kind of fun to come up with some different colors of fabric. But I just ripped them into strips so you had a really raw edge on these, and that way when you wind them around the different spools, you kind of get that look of that it's tattered and aged and kind of old. And you can see I'm just using a little bit of the hot glue to glue these on. Now this part, the hot glue is fine to use, so I was totally fine with this. I just felt like if you were going to store these and wrap them up, I felt like that hot glue might kind of come unhooked from the spool's edge. So that's why I mentioned that on that portion of the DIY, but getting this fabric on, the hot glue will work just fine. This isn't rocket science as you're doing this. It's fairly simple and easy, and you can watch and see exactly how I do this. But just every couple of times that I wrap it around, I'll put a little daub of glue to kind of help hold that down in place. And then when I get to the very end of the strip, I will glue that one down. And then I go back to the other end of the spool and kind of work my way towards the center, just making sure you're getting full coverage over that entire center piece so you don't see any of that cardboard, which is why I have several strips of fabric that I'm using. That way I can make sure I have the coverage that I want, and it looks like it's just kind of leftover scraps left on these vintage spools that we're making. On my middle size of spool, I'm using a red fabric on here. It's kind of a red, almost like candy cane stripe was what it made me think of. And that's what's so fun about these is you can personalize them so much to your own decor and the kind of fabrics that you would like. So the possibilities are endless. Now I'm just using one big long strip of fabric for this size. So it's going to be wrapped a little bit differently than the first one, which is really nice because it kind of gives each of them their own little story to tell or their own little difference. And it's kind of the little touches that you put into your DIYs like this that really drive home that appearance of authenticity, gives them that nice, just the little things always take your projects over the top. So just remember that when you're doing them. Now, when I get this all the way wound up, I just take another piece of that same fabric and I tie it off in the middle. It goes around a couple of times and then I tie it just in a knot, just as if somebody from 100 years ago had a little bit of scraps on this fabric and they just tied it off and left it. On the edge of the fabric where I cut it, I just take my fingernail and kind of fray the edge a little bit so it also has that aged, tattered look instead of having a fresh cut look on it. I follow just the exact same steps on this smaller size. Now you could use some smaller strips of fabric on this, but also some ribbon might be really cute, or some embroidery thread, or even some twine to kind of differentiate it even more. I just have a little bit of a different color. This is like a khaki green fabric that I thought tied in really well. Now on the top of these, I just take these bottle brush trees that have been wildly popular over the last few years, and I'm just going to glue them onto the top of each of these. There's 3 different sizes of trees that I put on each one, and as a grouping, this is just going to look absolutely beautiful. Now on that little teeny spool that I have there, I decide to kind of change it up a bit, and I tie a little bit of Baker's, the red and white Baker's thread. Baker's twine, is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. But I just tie that on there to bring a little bit more red, Christmassy, a little bow in there, just like it had been tied up with some thread. I thought it kind of was a fun little element to add to that, so keep that in mind also. But look at how beautiful all 3 of these are together. Just even one of them is going to be beautiful in your decor, but to have a grouping like this, and maybe you already have some of these spools sitting around that you could do something like this with, but these trees are so popular to kind of stack on different things in your winter and Christmas decor, and I just thought this would be such a fun way to display these. I'm excited to have these sitting on my shelf, scattered with some different winter and Christmas decor amongst them. What do you guys think of these? Is this something that you would try? I love using napkins to do different decor items with, and I found these at JoAnns. I got them on sale for like 60% off or something, but I loved the edge. Now inside of this pot is just some joint compound that's been watered down, and it's dried for over 24 hours. So I just want to let you know something in the bottom of your pot you're going to want to give it some stability. Now these napkins have the most beautiful edge to them, and so I thought they would be so cute turned upside down on a pot, and I'll show you what I mean by that. These were 3-ply napkins, so I peeled the 2 layers off of the back, so that way you're down to just the one surface, the one ply that you're working with. I'm just covering the entire surface with Mod Podge, and then I'll take a brush and smooth that all out, so you just have a thin coat of the Mod Podge all over. And then I'm using the base of this napkin as a trim around the edge of the pot here. Now I'm leaving a little bit of an excess on the top, so that way I can fold it over and have it go onto the inside of the pot. You're not really going to see on the inside of the pot, but just in case. And I'm taking my time because I don't want these, I want it to be as straight as possible. And when you're lifting it up, if you feel your napkins start to tear, you just kind of want to stop. But these napkins were actually such good quality that I could peel them up and kind of manipulate them, and they worked fine. Now I'm just going to tear off where I want the excess to be removed. Tearing it's going to give it a natural edge, and it's going to blend in. You're not even going to see that it was torn. And you can see here how I'm folding that excess over the top of the pot there, and it gives that ring on the pot that consistency all the way around. Now I went and cut off my excess, and I maybe got a little too liberal with how much I cut off, but I'll show you how I fixed that here because I want it to wrap all the way around the bottom of the pot. So now I'm just going around and making sure that the napkin is placed on that Mod Podge that's on the pot. I don't have an excess of Mod Podge or extra Mod Podge on my brush yet. I'll put that on once I get it placed down. Right now I'm just trying to get all of the surface of the napkin touched to the surface of the pot. And here I'll put some on the bottom, and I'm just going to rub this around with my brush here, and then I will start to fold over the edge of the napkin. So you can see I'm just going to fold that over there. And you can kind of see as I do this that there's a little spot left over in the middle. If I would have paid attention to how much I cut off the bottom of the napkin, I probably wouldn't have run into that issue. But it works out fine because luckily we're working with napkins and Mod Podge, so fixes are super simple to do here. Now I'm going to take the Mod Podge and put it all over the pot. This is going to give the protection that you're going to need on the outside of the napkin. So that way it's going to be water resistant. You're not going to have that napkin tear or anything. This is just giving that protective layer and making sure that it is all bonded to the surface. Now you can see I'm just taking a torn piece of napkin and I'm just going to place this down on the base there, and then I'll set it down and just kind of tear off all of the edges around. You don't need to cut this with a scissor because I feel like you get more of an edge that way and it does not look as clean. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but when you tear it, it kind of leaves those little fibers of the napkin. So when you put the Mod Podge on it and place it down, it's going to kind of disappear into itself. And so it really helps it blend in much more with a torn edge than a cut edge. Now, and you can use water to tear the edge. This one, I didn't really need the water because I didn't need to be super precise. So I just tore it drier with the little Mod Podge that it had on it, and it seemed to work just fine. I found this bottle brush tree at Walmart. I loved how it had the different sections on it. So I'm just going to take off. Now you could leave this little wood stem on there if you want. It's going to be hidden in the pot. So I thought, well, I can probably use it for another project or something. Do you guys ever do that? Take pieces off and think, oh, I'll use it. And then it just goes into a stash. I'd love to know if I'm the only one that does that or if you do that. So let me know in the comments. So I'm just taking some scrap styrofoam and gluing that into the bottom of the pot. That's just going to give it the stability there. And then taking some Spanish moss here. I love to buy my Spanish moss at the craft store. I feel like you get a better deal than you do at the Dollar Tree. I know I say that all the time, but it really is such a good value. And I'm just taking just whatever amount I feel looks good, and I'll just put some hot glue down on that styrofoam, and that's just what's going to hold that moss in place. When you do place your Spanish moss down, just know that it's got, like, that glue can seep through and burn you. So either wear some finger protectors or just be very careful when you're doing this. I'm tucking the Spanish moss in around the edge so it's not completely like haywire and crazy off all of the edges there. Kind of helps it adhere also. So I'm just taking a paintbrush and I'm just going to place a little hole in the middle of that Spanish moss and the styrofoam. So that's where I'm going to stick my tree. Now I'm taking just a teeny bit of Mod Podge, and I probably should have done this before I put the Spanish moss on, but I didn't know I wanted to do it until this point. So I want to put a little bit of glitter around the edge to kind of have a little shimmer where that snow is, not overboard. I know some of you were like, ooh, no with the glitter. And then I have a lot of you who were like, yes, at Christmas time, glitter is totally okay. I've never used it in my Christmas DIYs until this year, but I'm loving it. So it's just a little bit to give it a little bit of a sparkle. Now, once this is completely dried, I'm just wrapping some twine around this. You want to make sure that Mod Podge is dry before you kind of move on to these next steps so you're not tearing up that napkin at all. So I just wrap it around 3 or 4 times and then just tie it off. I don't think I show it, but I do put a dot of hot glue in the back to help hold those up. Since this is at an angle of the pot, the twine can slip down a little bit. So I just put a little bit there. It's hidden underneath the twine. You won't see it, but it'll just make sure those don't slip off there. I made a finger bow just by wrapping some twine around my finger 3 or 4 times and then tied it off in the middle. And I'm just going to tie that on here to kind of add a little bow. Now you don't have to do this embellishment at this point. You could stop at any point or do something totally different. But I have these little rusted jingle bells that came on like a string of them. I've used them in a few of my other projects this year. I'm just going to glue a couple of them on here. And I didn't love the look of just 2. So I decided to get a little bit of greenery that I had and glue that into the sides kind of underneath the bell coming out in front of the bow. You can kind of see it's just the tip of some greenery, extra greenery I had. And I do that on both sides, and then I add a 3rd bell on top. Since sometimes things look better in groups of 3, I feel like that looks much better than just the 2 bells that I had. And I love the little addition of the greenery. I take a bunch of hot glue and place that down into the hole that we made with the end of the paintbrush in the styrofoam and in the Spanish moss. It's just a little bit of a stem that you have to work with here, so I just really want to hold on to that to make sure it's secure and that it's dry and that glue really takes hold. Here's the final product, and I think it is absolutely beautiful. I think this really encompasses that woodland type of feel that is so popular this year, as well as using the bottle brush trees in all of your decor. And I really think this is a piece that you could leave out all season, so even through January, and even with the jingle bells and everything on there, I just think this is so fun and has that rustic farmhouse touch. I would love to know what you guys think of this. Are you a fan of the decoupage napkins on the pots? Because I'm loving doing all sorts of different projects for all different seasons with them. I've seen a lot of these really beautiful woodland, almost Christmas trees to be used for display, like tabletop Christmas trees, and I wanted to try and create my own. And I'm just using, this is just some of the reindeer moss that I'm going to cut up into some really small pieces. I'm just using a cookie sheet here to kind of contain the mess. And then even after I cut it, I'll cut it even more, just really, really fine that you want this. Now I'm just taking one of these Christmas tree forms that you can pick up at any craft store. Dollar Tree has some smaller ones that you could use. And rather than using hot glue, I just use some of the Beacon's craft glue. And I'm just going to kind of roll this into that reindeer moss that I cut and cover the entire tree. I just work in small sections, and you can see here I will go back in and trim it so it's not so bushy around the edges, and so that way it's kind of a nice sleek form. You can see this is what it looks like once I get all of the tree covered, and it took me 3 bags of the reindeer moss to cover this. Now this is a bag of potpourri I picked up from Hobby Lobby. It has some beautiful pine cones in it, but it has the most amazing smell. And you can see here all of the different pieces. I kind of categorized it so I knew what I was working with. Now I made a kissing ball last year doing this exact same technique, and it was wildly popular. It was so fun, and the scent that it brought into my home, the beautiful potpourri smell, was amazing. So I thought it would be fun to kind of have another piece that I could put on display to have as you walked by, get that beautiful smell. So I'm just going to put some pine cones on here, just using hot glue. Now that I've got the reindeer moss all the way around that styrofoam, you're going to be okay to use the hot glue and not melt your cone or your form here. So I just put one little one up at the top, so I knew that was just the perfect size. And then I take my bigger pine cones and I start at the bottom, and I'm just going to work my way up. And you're just going to sporadically glue these on. There's no real rhyme or reason. You're just kind of working with the bigger pine cones on the bottom and working up to smaller pine cones at the top of your cone, the tree form. And it's going to look something like this here. So not the prettiest yet, but you can kind of see what I'm going for. Now to get some of those little glue webs that you get, the little strings, I just use my heat tool to kind of melt those away. So now there's these little like chestnuts, I'm gonna guess that they are, maybe, I don't know, these little pieces that are in the potpourri. I'm going to sporadically glue those in as well. So depending on what kind of potpourri you use, or you find you may or may not have these pieces, so this would be totally optional, or you could use something else. And then I just have a lot of other greenery. These are just some picks from Dollar Tree, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, JoAnns, just a bunch of different Christmas picks that I have. You can even see to the right, one of them is a wreath that I had that I really liked the color of the greenery on. And I'm just going to glue this in all of those open areas here. So I will just stick a skewer in, make a little hole in that styrofoam. I will use some hot glue on the end of my pick to help stick it in there. It will kind of melt that styrofoam as you stick it in, but that helps it get a really good hold once that completely dries in there. These are very, very sturdy, and it's going to store really well. And as I was making this, I had my kids, like a couple of them came downstairs, and the first thing they were like, what is that delightful smell? Like they could smell the potpourri even from just walking in the room from working with this. So it's just such a fun way to bring a good Christmas scent into your home and have it be, just kind of a secret. Like nobody knows where it's really coming from, that you glued potpourri to a tree. Every once in a while, go ahead and set your tree up and kind of spin it around, look at it from different angles and see if you've got any holes anywhere, And just make sure that you're keeping that traditional like triangle shape of the tree so that you're putting your bigger pieces of greenery at the bottom. And as you work your way up to the top, they're gradually getting shorter and smaller. So that way you just keep and you don't compromise the form of that tree. So you keep that shape. And I just kind of will spin this around and look at it. You can see down to the right, I cut some of my pieces really small to stick in there, but you can make this as full as you want, which I suggest doing because it's absolutely beautiful, the fuller that these are. And you can see there are some wispy little different kind of picks that I've put in there that do kind of stick out a little bit further, and that's totally fine. I suggest doing that. But for the most part, you're just wanting to keep your generalized shape of that tree. But oh my gosh, you guys, look at how beautiful this is. If you find these on Pottery Barn's website or even Kirkland's website, they're hundreds of dollars. They're so expensive. And here you've made a beautiful one that not only looks beautiful, but smells amazing. I think this would be such a fun piece to have to put out at the beginning of your Christmas decorating season, your holiday decorating season, and have it up all the way through winter. It's going to last all season long, and I think this is just beautiful. What do you guys think of this one? I have these wooden mitten pieces here, and you can find wooden mitten cutouts at like Dollar Tree, at the craft store, online, Amazon, I've seen them. So I just took a plain wood pair and gave them a green coat of paint, just what matches my decor for Christmas. So you could do them in any color, bright green, forest green, do them red, blue, whatever color, you get my point there. But I'm just taking some spackling in a little cup here and mixing some paint into it. I want to make the fluff on these mittens look really textured and fluffy, nice. I just wanted to do something to help that part stand out rather than just have it be like typical white paint. So I'm kind of just going in a stippling motion up and down. And I'll do this like 3 or 4 times to make sure this texture is really thick on here, letting it dry really well in between each coat since it is so thick. I do use my heat tool to kind of help dry it in between coats, but you can kind of see I just take a bunch out of my cup, my mixture that I've made there, and then I just start spreading it around just in that stippling motion there. And I also turn it over. I only do 1 layer on the back since these are going to be hanging probably against a wall or somewhere. You probably won't see the back, but you know, just in case you want there to look like it's cohesive. For this step, I just sprayed some water onto my brush that I had, and I'm just gently tapping it against my finger to have the paint do a splatter around. I thought this was just kind of fun, maybe look like little snowflakes were on the mitten. And then I went around it with a fingernail file, just use a finger sander, whatever, because I just want to add a little bit of aging to this. That's my style. If you don't like the distressing, of course, you guys know, do what works best for you. But I really do think that sometimes sanding around the edges and adding these little touches is what takes and elevates these pieces to a little bit of a different level. So even if you don't do this step with the antiquing wax around to make it look aged, I still would even maybe sand around the edge just to give it like a little bit more of a textured look, kind of add a little bit more visual interest. But again, it's totally up to you. I take the antiquing wax here and I'm just kind of gently rubbing it over the mitten to kind of help it have a little bit more of an antiqued look as well. Now to embellish these, I took some twine here and I wrapped it around my finger 2 times so it was like a double bow, and then I just take another piece of twine. In this case, I'm using a smaller piece of twine and I'm just tying it in the middle. I like to use the smaller twine when I tie it off just because it's easier to tie and kind of work in that little small of an area. And so I just tie that off and then snip all of that off so you can't see any of the small ends, and I trim the ends of my larger bow. And then I'm just going to decide where I want to place everything here. Now I have these little wire cutters here, what these are. I got these at Home Depot, or Lowe's, I think actually, one of the two, but you can find them either one. This is the Cobalt brand, and they work so well when you're working with florals, and I get so many questions about these, but I also use this pair here. These are jewelry like snippers that I got, and I think you can find them just in the jewelry section at your craft store. They're nice when you need to butt up against something to trim it flush, so that's when I like to use those. And so sometimes you'll see me use them back and forth, and you guys always ask questions about them, so I thought I'd maybe try and explain a little bit about the difference between the two there. Now that I've decided where I want those, I just use some hot glue to place it down. And we're gonna festive these up a little bit, and I'm just gonna add a little Mod Podge to where the snow is, just lightly, just kind of hitting those high raised areas, maybe down into a little bit of those little valleys there of where I stippled all of that texture on. And I'm just gonna lightly sprinkle a little bit of glitter. There's a little glitter on the florals that I used, so I thought that it would just really be kind of fun to have that sparkle. I know I've said this before in some of my Christmas DIYs, but if there's ever a time for glitter, I feel like Christmas is it, and I don't love it over the top, but every once in a while it does just kind of add that extra little touch to a piece that really makes it literally shine. So I think that I didn't overdo it, just enough that you have to see it, and it just looks really cute. Now I have this fencing wire. We use this on our farm. I've told you guys several times how I stole this out of my husband's truck because I loved how aged it looked because it had been sitting out forever and everything. So I'm just using some of this. To be honest, I wish I had like a thinner gauge wire. I don't even know what gauge wire this is. It's just what we use when we do fences on our farm. And it works really well, but I felt like in this particular project, I wish I could manipulate it a little bit better and easier, that it was a little hard for me to kind of get strung between these two. But I just stick it through the little hole that's cut out on the mittens, and then I just use some pliers to wrap it around to kind of give it that end so it's not going to come back out of the stocking. It's not a stocking, it's a mitten. I don't know why I called it a stocking. Anyhow, and I just kind of twist that around and then bend it so the mittens will hang the correct way. But if you even just twine, I think would work really well for this. But if you have some wire, a thinner wire, I think it's going to work better. I ended up having to corkscrew it just around a pencil like this so the mittens would hang kind of how I wanted them to. Once I did this, it really did kind of solve the problem that I was having. And then I just kind of gave it a curve in the middle so I can hang this from like a peg, or on my china hutch has like little door handles. I thought it would be really cute to kind of hang from those, just kind of hanging off the corner of a shelf maybe. I just think these turned out so dang cute. What do you guys think of these? Are you a fan? I love the texture that ended up on the little cuff of these mittens and a little bit of sparkle you can see. And I think these are kind of like one of those timeless Christmas items that is never going to go out of style, and you can really make them custom to your decor.
For this project, you just need a blank picture like this. Now, this originally had some writing on it. It was from Hobby Lobby, I believe. I bought it at the clearance. I had painted over it for another project, but I'd never used it, so it's perfect for this. And I have these two little different grapevine wreaths, these two different sizes. And I've seen these at a couple of like the craft shows that I've been to recently, and even some boutiques. So I thought it would be fun to make my own little snowman. And I'm just using some scrap wood for the snowman's hat. I'm just going to paint these with some black paint. Now, this little brim is just a piece of a painter's stick, and then it's just a little piece of scrap wood from like one of those Dollar Tree planks that you get that come like 5 in a package. Now, to embellish my little snowman here, I want some cute little bells. These are just some rusted bells. You can take some regular bells that you may have, spray them with some adhesive or put Mod Podge on them and put some cinnamon on them to rust them up. Soak them in some vinegar to do a rust technique that way. I actually bought a container at the craft store of just rusted bells because I use them a lot in my Christmas DIYs. So I thought it would be fun to have some just on hand. I just took 2 of them and I just tied them together so that way they could dangle from what's going to be like the belly of our snowman here. And I'm just using some hot glue on the back of this wreath. I wanted to attach the bells before I put the wreath onto my background because I just wanted to make sure that they were attached really well. And the twine that I was using, like the knot, was hidden behind it. So that way when I glue it on, you don't see that at all. Using quite a bit of hot glue, I go around my wreath here 2 or 3 times to make sure that I have a sufficient amount of glue that's going to touch the surface. You want to pay attention when you're using the grapevine because sometimes the glue will seep down into all the crevices there and you won't have a lot that touches your surface. So just make sure when you're working with something that has a lot of gaps and crevices, such as a grapevine wreath like this, that you make sure you have enough glue that adheres the surface and what you're gluing down. So just kind of eyeballing the spacing here to make sure I have enough room for his hat. I place that on so I can kind of see what I'm doing, and then I glue on the head. Now to pop up the hat, I didn't show this and I apologize for that, but I did put a little square block behind it to raise that up. And you'll be able to see it a little bit as I go on through the video how it looks, but I just thought that the dimension on the hat looked really cute. That way it wasn't so flat. It kind of comes out over his head. You can see the gap there. I really loved the look of the dimension of that, so it worked really well to have that pop out. Now, instead of a scarf on my snowman, I thought it would be fun to do kind of some florals, some pine boughs here. Make it look really festive, almost like a great big bow tie, I guess, of all of these different Christmas foliages here. These are just scrap pieces that I had. So just take a look at what you have in your Christmas florals. Maybe you've got something that would already work really simple for this. And I just did the same thing on either side, so it was really symmetrical and just kind of went for things with different textures, different tones, different colors. You could be as colorful as you wanted this or have it be as neutral as you wanted with this. Now, a lot of the greenery that I was working with was a plasticky consistency, so I did switch from hot glue over to Beacon's glue, so I wasn't melting any of the florals that I was using, so just keep that in mind that Beacon's glue is amazing. Now, I did just tie a little bit of gingham ribbon here into a shoestring bow, and I'm just gluing that down with some hot glue. I'm leaving the tails a little bit longer so I can kind of maybe have them ripple down over the wreath here, and I do dovetail the ends. You just fold it in half and cut up into a V motion or a V shape there, so that way you can see you have that really pretty dovetail end to your bows. Just using a dot or two of that Beacon's glue, I am just placing it on the grapevine wreath and the ribbon and pressing the ribbon down so it has a rippling effect, so it looks like it is just free falling over the snowman's belly, but that way we have control of where it is, so you can still see those bells tied in the middle. It's not going to fall down. And I do the same thing on the other side, just making sure to have a couple of little bends in the ribbon, so that way you have the natural looking ripples. Now I have this little tag. It's just from a set of Walmart tag ornaments, and it just says Joy on it. I loved the colors, and I thought it was just a cute little embellishment, like he's just holding on to a cute little tag to give someone there. Now, I want to decorate his hat. So I have this burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree that has print on it. And I thought it would be really cute to kind of cut this down to size, so that way it matches the size of his hat. It's not going to be too overwhelming. And I am just, since the hat is popped out, I can just fold each of those sides around and glue it onto the back. And then just leave a little bit of enough space so you can tuck some greenery down in there. So I'm just using a little bit of glue, and I just do a couple little sprigs there of some leaves and some berries to have it look like his hat's really festive. And I'm just placing a little red jingle bell right there on the front. And I had a little bit of the ribbon that I had used on his bow tie, so I just kind of folded that over like it was just kind of a little sash coming out of his hat there. And I just thought it looked really cute. You can be as fun and add as much embellishment as you want, or make it as simple as you want. Now I'm just putting a little bow on the tag there, and I decided that his hat was really, really black, and so I just decided to brighten it up a bit with a little bit of white paint on my brush, just dry brushing over that to kind of brighten it up. And that makes our little snowman complete. Isn't he just the cutest? I love how this turned out. I think that it is very farmhouse and rustic, but high-end and classy at the same time. I think it's beautiful, and it would be a great addition to anyone's Christmas decor collection. What do you guys think of him?
For this project, I'm just using some of the sticks, the branches that I picked up at our farm this fall as we were cleaning up, and I have a whole pile of them. My husband kind of has a love-hate relationship with me bringing sticks home from the farm. He loves that I pick them up, but then suddenly realizes that I'm bringing them all home to sit in a pile. Anyhow, I picked out 4 branches here, or sticks, and I had to kind of break one down to be the size that I needed. I'm going to do a really beautiful tree shape out of these. As I was scrolling through for some inspiration on the internet, I saw a couple of these trees done with some sticks, and I thought they were just so lovely and easy, so that's what we're doing here. So as you can see, I have some wire here, just some floral wire works fine. This is covered where it looks in like some type of something to make it look like it's the branches, it's that brown color or something. And I really like that because it kind of kept that organic feel that I'm going for here, that very woodsy type feel. So I'm just going to take my center branch, which is going to be longer than all of them because it will end up sitting in a pot, and I'm going to make a triangle tree, like Christmas tree shape here. So I'm going to take my wire, and this is kind of the hardest part. You may want to be tempted to use some hot glue to help your branches kind of stick together while you're doing this. It's not going to work. The glue does not stick to them. It kept falling. I tried it and it kept coming apart. So you just kind of have to hold them. You have a little bit of time to manipulate your shape after you get your wire tightened. But once you do your first wrap around and tighten it with some pliers, you can see here I will grab my pliers and I'm just twisting that wire. That's just going to make sure that the wire goes super tight into your project, and it's going so these branches don't move. Now, as I twist that wire around in the different direction here, you're just going crisscross with the wire so everything is just held in place. And then when I get my 2 ends together, I'll do the same thing, wrap with some pliers. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, but you just want to you wrap around one way and then you wrap it around crossways. And so that way you get kind of like an X shape with your floral wire there. And you can see I'll grab that. I'm flipping it around so I can get an easier hold on it here. But with my pliers, I'll just grab my 2 wire ends and then you're just twisting that around to tighten that. That way nothing's going to be sliding out of there or anything like that. Now I'm going to put the bottom shape, that bottom line of the triangle for the Christmas tree shape there. And I'm going to do the same thing where those ends meet on each of those branches. The exact same thing with crisscrossing that wire. Now you could use twine to tie this if you wanted to. I struggle with that whenever I've made pieces where I've had to tie rather than the wire. The wire I feel like just gives you a little bit better of a hold and it's easy to maneuver. So if you're like, oh, I know how to tie this up, I've done that several times, go ahead and do that. That works great too. I just felt like the wire was a little easier for me to work with, especially since like the sticks are going in all different directions. I needed something that would hold them very tightly. But everywhere that there's a connection with your sticks, you're going to do this. So I will go over and do it on the other corner. You'll see here in just a moment. And then where the center branch comes down, I will also do it there so it holds that branch in place. Now the fun part of this is you get to embellish it any way you want and the possibilities are completely endless. So I was kind of going for an asymmetrical look here. I wanted some really woodsy, organic feeling pine boughs on here. So, and I have even these little feathers that to me kind of look like some sticks or something, just a different textural element. And I loved that deep brown color with them. And so you can kind of see I'm going to go down that side of my tree with all of these. And there's a couple different types of pine there, greenery. They're probably not really pine. I'm just saying that because that's all I can think of at the moment, but some different greenery for some contrast. Now this is just a bundle of like a swag of grapevine sticks that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. And just as I need sticks, I just pull them out a couple at a time.
Now I'm going to grab a couple of these and make a little bundle of sticks, different sizes of sticks, some a little bit shorter, some a little bit longer, and I'm just wrapping some floral wire around the top of these to bundle them all together. And again, I'm just tightening that wire because I don't want these to fall out or anything. I just want to make sure they're nice and secure. Now I'm going to slip this up on this side of my tree, kind of get it as much as I can up underneath where I've already tightened with that wire. And if I need to go back in with more wire to tighten this in now, you can do that as well. And then I'm going around the center here with these branches, or not the center. What I'm doing is I'm wrapping these kind of around like the grapevine is naturally growing down the side of the tree. It gives a little bit of texture. To hold these down in the middle, I'll grab just another little piece of that floral wire and go around the center here. And I apologize, when I go to do this here and tighten this, I completely go out of frame, but I'm just twisting this around. It blends in and it's just what's going to give an extra secure, like stableness to those little teeny branches going down. And so that way they're nice and secure. I even grab a couple of the little grapevine branches and do the same thing over on this other side, just again to give it a little bit of texture. I just wanted this to look like it was just something that was gathered out in the woods and just made from natural pieces that you would find and just look really kind of whimsical almost, really going for that woodland type of vibe that is so popular. I love the neutrality of those DIYs and the feel of them, just kind of like a very, I keep saying organic because that's what comes to mind, but just kind of like that organic, natural feel. The fun thing about these DIYs like this is you get to put them up as soon as you start decorating for your holiday season, and they can last all until you're ready to get your springtime out, because it's not specifically like Christmas. I mean, you can make it that way, but I mean, they really have more of like that winter feel. I love the rich wood tones and the browns with that greenery. I just think it's so pretty. So now you can see here, I'm just tying on the different greenery that I have here. I'll slip it in and then I go kind of do like a dry fit. I'm using a little bit of hot glue right now just so I can have this kind of be it's not for permanent hold, it's just to kind of hold it in place until I can get my floral wire to wire it in so it becomes permanent, because the glue will not hold on these branches. I think I mentioned that earlier. They will fall off. So you just want to make sure it's just to hold it until I can get my floral wire there and secure it more tightly. I even put those little feathers in there. I just thought that was such a fun little look. Now these bells came from Hobby Lobby. And this is kind of another little DIY within a DIY, but you kind of can't tell on here. The color of the gold is so yellow and it's almost streaky. They're very inexpensive, and they definitely look very inexpensive. So we're going to give them a makeover and kind of make them look more like those traditional farmhouse bells that you see in all of the decor, especially at Christmas time. We're going to start out by giving these a good coat of black chalk paint, and then this is just some gold rub and buff that I am using here. This stuff is so amazing, and it gives such a much better gold color than the tone that was already on these bells. So I'm just going to squeeze out just a little bit. You need just a teeny bit to work with. Now you can use your finger too if you would like to. That works well, but I'm just taking that little bit on my paper towel, and I'm just going to dab the excess off and just kind of go in and just start rubbing around. You can see immediately how that starts to make it look shiny there. In fact, it took me a minute to look at it and be like, wow, that actually worked out really, really well. It's such a beautiful tone that it gives, and the contrast between the black and that gold is going to give you that very rustic look. Even if you don't love the distressed with the black and the gold, if you purchase these bells from Hobby Lobby, I highly recommend just rubbing this gold over them to enhance them and make them look a lot like much better. And if you see these bells in person, again, that doesn't quite pick up on camera, but if you see them in person, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's such a fake color that's on there, and it's streaky. So it's kind of fun to be able to enhance them and have them look kind of tailored to your taste. I love the contrast with the black and the gold because it does make it look very rustic, which is what I'm going for. I want these bells to look like they've sat out in the woods for years. Hopefully that's what I achieve. You can see here, I'm just going to show you the original color. You can kind of see a little bit the gold between that original one. Again, it doesn't pick up how bad they really are on camera. But now I've just hung my bells over the top of the tree there, wired them in with some floral wire. And then this is just an IKEA pot with some styrofoam and some moss on the top of it to tone it down so it's not so stark silvery, looks maybe like it's rusted. I'm just taking some antiquing wax on a brush and I'm just going around all of the ridges on this. Whatever pot you have to put this in, you can use your imagination. I really loved the look of this galvanized metal. And then just when I'm doing the antiquing wax, I'm paying special attention to hit all of the little edges and everything where it would naturally rust. But look at how beautiful and elegant this is. It's so simple, and I feel like it just really captures just that Christmas feel. It's got that traditional Christmas tree shape, and I just love the natural whimsical greenery that's on there. I think this is so beautiful, and it was so easy to do, especially if you can just go out in your yard or wherever, find some sticks. If you don't have sticks, some dowels from the craft store or your local hardware store would work just as easily to make this. I would love to know your thoughts on this. This project is so fun and simple, and it's something that you can use throughout the entire year. It's not specific just to Christmas. In fact, I've actually done this project for a couple of other seasons on my channel, and I just love it. So you just need one of these solid signs from Dollar Tree. It can be either the solid wood ones or the composite material such as this. It doesn't matter. It just can't be hollow. And all I'm going to do is just take my fingernail file and sand off the edges. I do not need to remove the graphic that's on here because I will be gluing cardstock over the top of it. And so the cardstock will be opaque. You will not be able to see this design through. If you're going to be doing something like painting it, you don't want that moisture of the paint to go through that graphic and bubble it up. And if you're going to be doing something thin like a tissue paper, you will want to peel this graphic back. Now I took this outside and I cut it down to be 3 inches high on each of these little blocks here. And you can do this with a table saw, a hand saw I've used several times. In fact, when I did a live on my channel and made these, I used just a table saw to do that, or a hand saw, and it works great. I'll put a link to those down in my description box if you're interested in checking them out on Amazon, but you can get them at any hardware store. They run about $10. Now I just sanded then smoothed out each of the edges of these blocks. You can see here that I got 5 blocks, or actually 6 blocks, excuse me, out of one of those signs from Dollar Tree. So if you were to take these and sell these at a craft fair, you're paying like $1.25 for the sign, but you can get 6 projects out of this. You can sell them as a group for easily like $18 or $20, I feel like. That's, you can sell each one individually $3, $4, depending on the market that you live in. But it's definitely a great, inexpensive project to be able to get a very good return when you're reselling these. Now I'm just using my trusty Elmer's purple school glue stick. I love this. It works wonders for items like this. I love it so much more than Mod Podge. I will go over the top of these at the end with Mod Podge, but to do the actual getting this to stick to the surface, that Elmer's school glue is great. I'm just using my brayer here just to get a nice firm hold, making sure all of the edges have been pushed down. It just creates a really good bond. And you can see I'm just going to flip over the block and do the exact same thing on the other side. Now I've made this mistake way too many times, so I feel that I'm just going to share it because someone out there is probably just like me and goes to glue these together and flips it over to look at both sides and realize you've glued one side upside down. So every time I go to make these, I feel that happens to me at least once. So learn from my mistakes. I'm just letting you know if that matters to you and you want to be able to see it from the back side, make sure you're gluing them down right sides so that way one's not upside down. Now these are so fun because say you wanted to put a Christmas design on one side, you could flip it over and just put a beautiful winter scene or snowman on the other side. So that way during the season when Christmas was over, you could just walk around your house and flip these around to the other side,
Christmas is put away and you've got a nice winter display out. It's also fun to be able to do like fall on one side and Christmas on the other, or you can do patriotic on one side for summertime and then flip it over and have like a nice cute just summer flower or something on there. They're so versatile, and these are such great items to resell. People love these. They're just beautiful little tray sitters or shelf sitters. I just tucked these all over my home with my Christmas decor, and they were so cute. And honestly, it's something that a lot of, like, if you have people come over, this was the item people could like pick up in their hand just really easy. They would pick it up and be like, oh, that's so cute, and they just loved them. So it's a beautiful, easy project, and it's just super fun and quick to make. Don't forget to clean up the edges when you're doing these signs though. I just take a fingernail file and go within a downward motion over all of the edges. This is just going to take any of that excess cardstock off, and it's going to make this look like it was actually printed and made to go on your block. It's just such a great way to finish a piece, and I recommend anytime you're doing any type of decoupage, using any type of medium, to do this after the glue has dried to give that nice clean look. It just really elevates your piece to the next level. Since I want these to have a little bit of an aged look, I'm taking just a little bit of antiquing wax on like a baby wipe or a wet paper towel, and I will just go around the edge of each of these, especially where we sanded the edge to make it match the surface there to give that clean edge. It does sometimes expose a little bit more of that white cardstock. This just kind of helps mute that and kind of blend it in. And I just really like the aged look. You can even go a little bit further into the graphic to kind of make it look like a vignette style. So that way it kind of is framing the picture. It's up to you how much you want to use this, but I do recommend at least going around the very edge just to give a nice finished look to it. You can see here I'm just taking some Mod Podge, and this is how I'm sealing them in. You can use a satin, you can use a matte, which is what I'm using here. It just depends on what you want your decor to be like. But I do like the matte just because then you can kind of see when it's wet, you have that glare on it. If you use just the glossy kind, you'll always have that kind of glare with the bright lights and everything. So that's why I kind of like using the matte on these, just to have a different finish. But I think these turn out so pretty. Perfect little shelf sitters. You could do all sorts of different little blocks with different pictures on them for different things in your home. You could even do like kids' pictures on these. If you didn't want to do graphics, you could have one for each family member or something. I just think these are so fun and just such a great technique to know and have for all different seasons. Have you been able to find these cute little tin reindeer at Dollar Tree? I just think they're so cute, and they come in a couple different patterns, but I'm going to give this one a little bit of a makeover. There's so many different fun DIYs I've seen out there, but I'm just using some pliers to remove the deer from the little wooden stand. If it was a little difficult for me to do, if you have a hard time, you could even just tape around the base, so that way you're not going to get any paint on it if you want to kind of leave it, or you could just paint it along with the deer if you want. I'm going to give this kind of that aged metal look here. I'm just painting it all black, and I will do the front and the back. This is just some black chalk paint just to start with your base. I think that the black looks really pretty. We're going to give this kind of a gold tone to it as well, and I just think the black has a really good undertone to it. But you could of course go through with whatever type of color you wanted to have be your underneath color. I'm just taking a little bit of black paint here after that first coat, and I'm going to mix some baking soda in with it. This is just, I'm doing this on a plate here. Do not worry about that red paint. It's dry. I'm just reusing my plate as many times as I can before I have to absolutely throw it away. Now I'm just going to mix this
baking soda in, this is going to give a really nice texture to our paint. You could also use some spackling with a little bit of paint mixed in if you would like to, some sand if you have, to put just something to give it a little bit of texture. So because we really want to lay that texture on thick, so when we do give this its final finish, that it really has the bumpy look to it. You'll see what I mean as we go on here. Now I'm just going up and down, kind of like in a stippling motion, just putting this texture on. You'll notice with the baking soda that it's not really like in a spreadable consistency. So you do kind of want to, not in the traditional sense as like paint. But I mean, if you were to use a putty knife, you could probably spread it. But with your brush, you're just going up and down in that pouncing motion. You can kind of hopefully see the texture here when I zoom in, kind of see what it looks like there. So you're just going to go over all of this. Now you can give the texture to the back if you would like to. You can leave the back plain black. You could even finish the back the same as you do the front. That's completely up to you. Now I'm just taking some Rub and Buff. This is that gold color. It has such a nice, beautiful tone to it. I'm really kind of going for this nice woodland vibe with the rich tones, kind of those really like the gold and the black and the deep browns is really what I'm kind of feeling with this piece. And you can see here, I'm just going to rub that Rub and Buff on. I eventually switch over to my finger on this particular piece though. Some of the ones when I've done bells before, it's worked really well with a paper towel, but with the texture on this, it was kind of eating through the paper towel, if that makes sense. So I'm just, I switch over to my finger in just a moment and kind of rub it on. I felt like I could get the texture and the coverage I wanted. So don't be afraid to do that. It washes right off your finger. You're not going to be walking around with gold tipped fingers for weeks or anything like that. But you can see that beautiful texture coming through. And here was where I kind of start going through with my finger because I wanted it to have a little more of the heavier gold tone than the black, and just kind of have the black peek through. Like, again, this was just a piece that was just sitting, aging for years, something that has stood the test of time. I just thought it was a really fun way to take a piece that, even though it was cute in that buffalo check, that it just shows you that you can take a piece and change it to match your decor or what you're envisioning. And of course, you wouldn't have to just singly do this on the reindeer. Maybe you've got another piece at home already that you're thinking that you could do this on to have in your decor to kind of change something up. Now for the base, I'm just taking some antiquing wax. I wanted to make this look a lot richer. That more deep woodsy brown color, kind of like tree bark, is kind of what I'm going for here. So just some antiquing wax that I'm going to rub onto this. Now it is like a composite, it's not actual wood. So when you go onto the edges, it absorbs it like you would not believe. So instead of pouring your antiquing wax directly on it, you're just going to want to use a brush to kind of go over the edge there. To get this back in, it was very hard for me to actually kind of push this back in. I thought maybe it would just slide right back in. Maybe you'll have a little bit better luck than me, but the tin is very kind of flimsy feeling, so I didn't want to force it because I didn't want to bend that. So on the little stakes that are there, I'm taking just a dowel and just like my little rubber mallet here, and I'm just gently tapping. I don't know if it looks like I'm tapping gently, but trust me, I am, because I did not want this to bend, and just tapping that back down into those holes there, and that's just going to make it, you can kind of see I decided I need to go in just a little bit further, so just a couple little taps there just to make sure that it looks so good and it's really adhered to that. And you just want to make sure none of the legs are like bent or anything like that. So now I thought to dress him up a little bit more, I would give him a little bow tie. So I'm just taking some velvet ribbon. You can see kind of in the right hand bottom corner of my screen. I bought this in the scrapbook section at Hobby Lobby. I just really thought it was a beautiful color of green and was kind of the tone I was going for. So I'm just wrapping it around, giving him a little collar there, and then I had just tied a little bow. You can kind of see on the right hand side of my glue gun there, just a little teeny loop bow that I tied off there, and we'll just go ahead and glue that on to give him his little bow tie.
I think this turned out so classy and sophisticated. I just love the way he looks with this cute little bow tie there. This is such a fun technique to take something that looked one way and then completely transform it to this neutral woodland vibe. This texture is such a trend right now, and it is beautiful, I feel, and I just really like how it turned out. And this is such a fun technique to use on any type of piece that you're thinking of. It wouldn't just have to be this reindeer, but if it's something that you're liking, you could start those creative juices flowing, thinking what in your home you could give a makeover to. What do you think of this little guy?
I'm taking a few pieces of scrap wood and I cut out these Christmas tree shapes, and I wanted to have kind of a little grove of trees. Now, I thought I would try something totally new, and so we're going to see how this turns out. So I'm just using my glue gun to make a little design on these trees. I wanted them to look like they were pressed tin. Now you can buy the faux pressed tin at Dollar Tree and cut those to size and put them on these trees and probably get a very similar effect. But I know a lot of you sometimes have a hard time finding that, or you want to do something that doesn't look exactly the same on each tree or something. So I just thought I would try this different technique, and each tree I'm doing a little bit of a different design. I was just trying to think of some different designs I might have seen on ceiling tiles or different things, just kind of geometrical or swervy designs. I really was just kind of making it up as I went along. And so you could probably look at actual tiles to get some inspiration for designs. In the end, I think these all end up looking really great. Now I'm using some of this Aleene's tacky glue because I'm going to place some tin foil, as you can see, or some aluminum foil down on the front of these. So I put my glue down and I'm just using a brush to spread that all out and make sure that it's between all of like the peaks and the valleys of all of the hot glue and everything. Now, and the hot glue is completely dried at this point. I just want to make that clear so that way you know that. Now I'm just gently pressing the design down, or the tin foil down, over the tree. And I'll show you another way that I do that rather than pressing it, because that worked, but not as great as this next way that I do it. So I'm just again showing on my next tree, I'm just spreading the glue all out with my brush. And then I use another brush with a little bit of stiffer bristles to tap that into place. So the aluminum foil, I'm just tapping it down between all of those little decorative areas, the highs and the lows of all of that glue. And I do the same thing on my third tree. Once I'm done, I just rub over it all with the brush and just make sure that Aleene's tacky glue is holding the foil down. So just let that dry before you sand it. Now I'm just using just regular aluminum foil. This is not heavy duty, it is just the normal kind. Now I'm just showing you this little kit here. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby, but I know there's so many different brands and ways of like this patina finish. And so it comes with your primer, in this case there's a copper base, and then there is the patina spray, and that's kind of like the activator to help give it that patina finish. So first I'm just giving this a coat of black paint, and I'm doing this on the sides and the back of all of these because I wanted these to look really old, really layered. And so you can see after that black paint dries, I go in with some white paint very thickly and put that on. I wanted these to look like they had been through generations and maybe been painted over 3 or 4 times of, oh, we need to touch these up, let's place some more paint on there. That was kind of the vibe that I was going for. Now on this middle tree here, I painted the aluminum foil side with the black paint, and then I painted over in white and did the same technique on that one because I wanted it to have a variation from these other 2 trees. So for this kit that I have, I'm painting the primer on right now. That's what this deep coppery color is right now. And you're supposed to do 2 coats of it. In this case, read the instructions on whatever kind you're using, and it will just follow them to the T and you won't have a problem. So after I let my primer coats dry, I'm now putting on my copper base coat here. And then mine says while it's still wet, I go in with my activator spray and spray that. And I did not know how liberal to be with this or anything, but you can see after you let it sit for the amount of time, I had to slow this down because I was really quick. But you can kind of see that coppery color start to come in there, and that patina, that green patina. And I know there's different types of
patina colors that you can get. So pay attention to that. It'll be fun to try them all. Now I'm doing on this one, I put a little bit of antiquing wax and then a little bit more of the white paint over it. I just wanted it to look kind of rusty and like aged and old. And look at the patina finish on this large tree though. Isn't that beautiful? I love the way that looks. If that's not your style, I get it. You can do whatever technique you want on these, but I thought it was just fun. But as I was sitting these here, I went, 3 trees is great, but 5 would be even better. So I cut out 2 more shapes of Christmas trees, and I'll show you those here in just a second. But I guess first what I'm doing is I put a back on these, and I'm just using, and that's only because my wood that I cut them out of was not thick enough. Like I was afraid it was gonna tip over if somebody like walked by it or something, or a breeze hit it. So if you have really thick wood you do this with, you would not need to add anything onto the back to help give them stability, but I just glued some Jenga blocks. So here's the other 2 trees that I had mentioned, and I'm just going to cover them. I got a little smarter this time around. I cover the entire thing in black paint to start with my base layer to have a little bit of aging look there. And then I just went and freehanded some more designs on here with my glue gun and just whatever. I've actually seen some people like trace stencils, so you could even try that as an idea. And I originally thought on one of these I was going to do the patina, and on the other one just do a paint finish to kind of keep all of the trees looking cohesive. But I do end up putting foil on both of them, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. Maybe you'll be able to see it. But as I was painting, I did notice that you could see a lot of the hot glue strings. And I thought, well, the tin foil will completely cover that. So that is why I ended up putting the foil over both of them, was because it just gave it a nice look. And here's where I started doing that and went, oh, you can see all of those strings. I don't want to see that. I want this to look high end and nice. Now I do just want to mention that you don't have to use the foil to get the patina spray. I could have just done the patina on just the wood and it should have worked. I haven't tried it on that, but the tin foil was just a technique to kind of give it more that authentic like tin pressed look. Now here I'm just putting that glue on, making sure that I get in all of the areas, and then the same thing, I just take my brush and I pat that aluminum foil down all over and just make sure that I don't press hard enough or pounce hard enough that I rip the tin foil, but I just want to make sure that I get into all of the peaks and valleys of that design. And I do the same thing on both of them, even though the one I'm going to give the patina finish to and the other one I'm not. I still do that tin foil just to cover up any of those gross like hot glue strings that you might get from doing the original design on there. Do you guys call it tin foil or aluminum foil? I'm just curious. You'll have to let me know in the comments. We've always called it tin foil, even though I know it's called aluminum foil. I'm not really sure where that came from, but that's just what we always called it growing up. So I apologize if I'm going back and forth between the two. So I'm just using a fingernail sander here, fingernail file to sand the edges, and you just gently go down and you can see I'm just going along the edge there just to perforate that foil so that way you can tear that really easily. So here I'm just doing the same process that I did before, just painting that primer on, and then I'll do the base coat. On the other one that I am not going to do the patina finish, I am just painting it with a black coat of paint so that way it matches. You can see over on the left hand side, the farthest right tree there that's all white. I want it to match that finish as close as possible. So I'm kind of having it there to use as inspiration because I want these 2 trees that are similar in size to kind of match, and then the other 3 will have different variations of the patina. And then you can see I put that patina on it and I sprayed it very liberally on this one because I thought, okay, I've seen what happens when you spray a little bit. Let's try a lot. And then I go back in and I'm just painting more white on this other tree. And I put a little antiquing wax even on it to help like dirty it up a little bit, like it's been sitting around for years. And then go over the top of it again with some white paint to hit all of those. It's what makes those beautiful lines that we made with the hot glue. It's what makes those really pop and shine. And that detail is what makes these look so fun. Now you can see my middle tree there of the 3. I did kind of go over it with a little bit of white paint just to kind of make it look a little bit different. Now here's the patina on this smallest tree that I did, where I put a ton of the patina spray on there, and I love how that turns out. So I don't do anything to this one at all. I just glue a little bit of the blocks together, and I do this for both of the trees, and then I just glue that onto the back to help this tree stand up. But let's have a look at all of these trees together. These are so beautiful. I think these look so high-end. They look like something, I wanted them to look like something that was maybe passed down from generation to generation. Just they were something that had been around for years and years and years. And I hope that that's what I achieved with the look here. And I hope you guys thought this process of using the foil and the hot glue was a fun alternative to using the Dollar Tree tiles or actual pressed tin. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I can see so many different surfaces that you could do this on. So I think we may be trying this again. But what do you guys think of this little grove of trees here? Are you a fan of them? I personally think they look so beautiful. I have this cute little Coca-Cola tin. I got it from my mother-in-law's house when she was cleaning out some of her decor items, and she had a whole pile of stuff that was headed for the thrift store. So I grabbed this. If you don't have a tin, use one of these little containers from Dollar Tree. They have all different shapes and sizes, but I've seen all over Pinterest some little junk boxes decorated for Christmas, and I thought they were so fun, and I wanted to take my hand at trying one. Now I bought this ornament specifically to do this. I thought it looked very retro and very cute. He was just a couple of dollars with the 50% off, and I'm just cutting off his little hanging tag there. It was tin, so I could snip it off, and then I just sanded it with my fingernail file, so there's no sharp edges or anything. But that is the only thing I purchased for this. Everything else was just scraps of what I had. So I'm just taking some scrapbook paper. This was just a piece I'd cut some out of from a project I did earlier, and I'm just cutting it to match my lid. Now some of these that I saw did not have lids, so I could have left it off, but I thought it would be kind of cute to have this plaid peeking out and have the back of this tin. I picked this tin because it had that green color to it. It is a beachy scene on there for Coke, not a cute Christmas scene, but you know, if you live in a warmer climate, it works, and it's what I had, so I'm going with it. Now to fill my box up here, this little container, I'm just using a plastic sack there. I'm getting some hot glue. Floral foam would work fine, but I actually feel like I liked this better. I'm just taking, this is just something that for one of my Amazon packages came wrapped in this brown paper here. And so I put a bunch of hot glue down on that plastic bag, and I'm just going to tuck this all in so it's glued to that surface. And I just thought this was a great base to work with. Again, something free that I had at my home that I'm just repurposing. But I'm just making sure all of the edges are tucked around so you don't see that plastic sack anywhere. Now I kept going back and forth between my Christmas decor items, just pulling out bits and pieces that I had left over from other projects or things, little scraps that I had. Literally everything that I used was stuff that I already had on hand that I was recycling or was left over from another project. So go through all of your Christmas items as you're getting your home decor up. If you have any little pieces you're tired of, or maybe a part of it broke off or something, keep it and try one of these. I had so much fun putting this together. Now this is just a tree that I'd used in one of my sugar molds one year, and I had changed it out for something different this year, so I am just gluing it in, and I'm just using hot glue. It dries really quick, and so that's why I liked using it, but use whatever glue you would like. But I put that tree in, and then this Santa, and they're the main focal points of this cute little junk box here. Now I had this came on a little wreath that I had from a thrift store years ago that I used the greenery off of, and I've been hanging on to that little sheet music and that little French horn. But again, use what you've got. I mean, this is so fun to be able to take even some pieces that you might have they're so small that you don't know what to do with, and put them in a little art piece like this, and then you've got it. I just think it's such a fun idea. So I'm just sticking another little tree in. A lot of this was back and forth, trying to find pieces and dry fitting them in and deciding whether I liked it there or not before I actually committed and glued it. But I'll just kind of have you watch what I do here. I mean, look at how cute this is looking. This is one of my most favorite projects I've ever made. I thought it turned out so cute. But I'll just have you kind of watch my process here and just see everything that I'm doing with putting this together. One thing I did right here is I couldn't get that little peppermint to stand up, so I just crumpled a little bit more of that brown paper and just glued it right in to prop it up. So that's something to keep in mind to do. That's why it's so nice to use that brown paper because it blends in, but you can also use it to kind of fill in different spots. Now, I had glued that French horn in, but decided I wanted to put something else there. So it took me a minute with my heat tool to melt that glue, but I mean, it was super easy once I got that heat tool out, and I just kind of moved things around so I could fit that cute little mug that I had. I bought it on clearance last year and thinking I was going to do something for Valentine's. I never did anything with it. So now it's part of this little junk box, and I think it turns out so cute. Once you have all of your leftover ornaments or trees or pieces that you're putting in your junk box, you can take a little bit of greenery. This is just from my stash of different picks that I have, leftover bits and pieces that I'm just going to glue in and kind of fill anywhere that I feel like it maybe needs a little more greenery. This is the juniper branch, I think, pick from Walmart that has these beautiful little red berries all over. I love this. It just kind of ties in that red and green Christmas feel. And then I'm just taking a little bit of moss, whether it be reindeer moss or whatever. Maybe you've got your own moss that you preserved. Just kind of tucking that in. If you can see that brown paper, that's great too. But I just thought that this kind of brought in a little bit more greenery into it. But look at how beautiful this turns out. I mean, how fun is this? And I guarantee you've got a lot of little Christmas things hanging around your decor, little bits and pieces, as I like to call them, that you could totally bring together and make a beautiful little Christmas junk box like this. I mean, I hate to use the word junk with it, but I know that's what they call them. But oh my gosh, I just think this is so fun and so beautiful and has that great vintage vibe. I'm so excited to use this in my decor this year. What do you guys think? Have you hopped on this trend? Have you tried this? Do you think you're going to try it? I would love to know your thoughts on this. I love how this DIY turns out, and it is such a show-stopping piece. Oh, it's so beautiful, you guys. You're going to start out using some of these hoop orbs from Dollar Tree. Now, if you can't find these, because I know they're kind of elusive at some Dollar Trees, embroidery hoops would work well. The bamboo hoops they have at Dollar Tree, even like at your craft store, down like the macrame aisle, you can find some hoops like this. So just something, you want at least 3 of them. The one from Dollar Tree came with 4, and this is the larger size that Dollar Tree has. They have 2 different sizes. So depending on how big you want to make yours, you'll just kind of have to do one of the larger, the small ones. Now, they come with these wonderful little metal fixtures here to try and help you space this out. They're horrible to try and figure. I mean, I'm sitting here trying to read the instructions, which I could not figure out. I couldn't It was just so horrible, you guys. So the best place for these little metal fixtures is in the trash. Take your zip ties. You can buy a pack of these in the automotive section at Dollar Tree. I love them. They are perfect when you're making wreaths or floral arrangements, this included, because we're kind of doing a floral arrangement with this. But we're going to set our zip tie in, and I'm just going to make sure that you'll see how it'll open up. The one hoop is facing one direction, the other one's like kind of making an X there. So you want to turn over your hoops, and you're going to want to put one on the bottom, and that way kind of in the opposite way that you put the first one on, so it's going to hold these open. I hope you can see what I'm doing. It's hard for me to kind of verbalize it, so hopefully you can just kind of see what I mean there, so that way you kind of have your orbs standing there. And then I'm just going to add the other two orbs in and putting some zip ties the same way on each of those, so that way I have this completely open. I felt like this was just so much easier than figuring out that little metal fixture.
Round after round of food, in part because I did not want the celebration to end, but I must confess I was also quite apprehensive of my wedding night. In fact, I was quite full by the time I got to Aubrey Hall. I certainly do not recommend that. Well, what do you recommend, Emma? I know you and the Duke, well, whatever took place between the two of you.
Right here, I'm just using some pliers to pull the zip ties tight. That is one way to make sure they're going to hold open your hoops here. You can kind of see they're already starting to be held just with the couple of zip ties that I've added. But once it stays open and you feel it's pretty secure, you don't need to have any more zip ties. And you're just going to cut all of the extra tails on there off, and we will be covering those. You just want to make sure that there's no sharp edges as you're working with this, because you certainly don't want to cut yourself on a zip tie. Now I'm just taking a piece of styrofoam here just to kind of cut into a square piece to put at the base of the orb here. And so you can kind of see, I'm just going to push that down. Here we go. Get that all punched in there where that zip ties and everything sits. And then I use just a lot of hot glue. I know hot glue and styrofoam are not the best of friends, but I put a bunch on there and I let it dry thoroughly before I move ahead with my next step. That way that styrofoam is nice and secure. Now comes the fun part here of being able to embellish this. Now everything I do, take with a grain of salt. You can decorate this any way that you would want. I'm going to take these grapevine sticks here. I buy a bundle of them at the floral accent section at Hobby Lobby. I've seen them at Michael's and at JoAnns. It's just, I pull the little sticks out of the little bundle there and use them in different floral arrangements. When I'm going for that really woodland vibe, they are perfect. Now I'm starting at the top of the orb and I'm just kind of circling these around. The grapevine is so nice because it has kind of like a bendability to it, almost like wire. And so it actually circles around these orbs really well. I just thought this would disguise the metal on these if you were using like the bamboo hoops or I keep wanting to say emery boards, but they're not emery boards. Oh my gosh, embroidery hoops. When you use embroidery hoops, you may really not have an issue of having the wire show. And in all truthfulness, the wires would look fine if you just left them blank. I just really wanted this to look woodsy and like it was just made out of something that you found out in the forest. So that's why I wrapped all of these with that grapevine. After I get the grapevine all wound on there, it's time to start building our base, which is our floral piece here. And so I take several different pieces of greenery. I picked all of these up at Hobby Lobby. You guys, I shop at Hobby Lobby all the time because I literally have one less than a mile from my house. But any craft store that you would be able to go to, you'd be able to find this greenery. And right now, I feel like it's on sale at all of these different places at Hobby Lobby. It's 50% off right now. So I picked up a bunch of different ones to just kind of have a whole bunch of variety and textures, things that kind of all looked like that natural look here. I didn't want the real fake plasticky looking stuff, but
I'm really pleased with everything. So you're just going to kind of work to begin with in a symmetrical way. So you can kind of see there, I stuck that one pine in. I will go to the next corner and stick the next piece in. I'm putting a little bit of glue. That's just going to give you that permanent hold. And you can kind of see how symmetrical I am there, that each of the corners has one of those. That's how I start out, is just adding pieces in that symmetrical way, going all the way around. That's what's going to give you the fullness that you need. It's just important as you're doing this to kind of keep turning it, adding your greenery. And when you look at it and you go, ooh, I don't like the way that looks, it's so easy to just pull it out and stick it somewhere else. Do not glue it until you know for sure that's where you want it though. But it is nice on some of the bigger pieces to add a little bit of glue so that way they are not going to fall out of here. Especially if this is going to go outdoors or somewhere where you have high winds or something, you want to make sure that those pieces are nice and secure. When you're using this many types of greenery, it's really hard to mess this up in my opinion. So just go with what feels good and what looks good, just making sure that you're spinning your piece to give it that nice symmetrical look. Now you can kind of see, and I'll show you, I apologize I don't show it here because it's kind of more at the end. There's a bucket that I have under here that I picked up at Vintage Market Days, and that's actually going to be what I set this on for my base. So what I'm doing is setting this on here and seeing how it flops over the edge. So if you have a piece that you're going to set this on, I would recommend doing that every once in a while to make sure that you're building it to what you need. Now I have these antlers that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. They were only like a couple of dollars, and I thought they would be so cute and so whimsical to bring that nice woodland feel, that real natural tones. I love the ivories and the browns and the greens and everything that comes with this style of Christmas decor. And then I have this darling little owl that I found. Oh my gosh, I thought that was perfect. He actually inspired this whole piece when I found that little owl. And I just thought he was so adorable. Now I'm taking, this is from Walmart, this white berried juniper, I think is what it's called. And so I just thought, I stuck in these two pieces right here and looked at it and then went, okay, I actually really do like that. It brought a little bit more of a winter feel into it. And so if you wanted to add some color into this, definitely some red berries would look really beautiful, or even some gold or something like that would definitely be really pretty. Now I just put a couple of different pine cones there at varying heights next to my little owl friend. I feel like he needs a name. We need to name this cute little owl something. If you have some ideas, let me know down in the comments. I love when you guys come up with names for my little friends that I have in my pieces. You guys come up with some of the cutest names. I absolutely love it. So I just glued a couple of little like nuts that I had that were in a potpourri container. I think there's some kind of nuts. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure, but they match the antlers perfectly. So I glued a couple of those in to tie that kind of ivory or lighter brown tan color in. Now I'm just taking the floral wire that looks like grapevine. It has this coating or this stuff wrapped on it. It actually blends very well in with the grapevine and looks like it's part of that. I'm wrapping this kind of in between each of those little wire rings. That way it's going to cover any part of the zip ties that would still be showing, and it also is securing the grapevine at the top. And so this is definitely a crucial step here. Now, right now, I just happen to make a little loop that I added onto the top, totally optional. If it's not your thing, that's great. A lot of the ones I saw online like this had that little hook on the top. And it was so nice because if I decide I want to hang this, I definitely can. It is absolutely beautiful and would be so pretty hanging. Now I'm going to spin my wire with my pliers there to make sure it's nice and tight and secure, so that way it's not going to fall or come apart or anything. And then any excess wire that's hanging, I just trim that off. And then I'm just bending it up with my plier just to make sure that there's no sharp edges that are going to catch on anything. Now this part of the DIY actually took the longest and is totally optional. I wrapped fairy lights around each of these wires to light this up, and I really think this makes this piece. But look, you guys, I love how this turns out. I think this is so beautiful. I found pieces like this online that were over $200 for smaller than this. This is so beautiful. I have a little bit invested in this. I think my bucket I picked up at Vintage Market Days for like $10, I believe. And then I probably spent about $25-ish in greenery for this piece. So definitely if you have some scraps or you wanted to use stuff from Dollar Tree, you could cut down on the cost there. But I mean, pennies on the dollar for what these cost retail. And I just think this is so beautiful. I love this sweet little owl. Isn't he just the cutest? Oh, I just love him. And the fairy lights make this piece, but you could definitely have it without the fairy lights, and it would still be absolutely beautiful. But what a fun way to bring that woodsy feeling into your home at Christmas time. What do you guys think of this piece?
I love using pieces from Hobby Lobby's clearance section. If you guys have watched me for any length of time, you know that I love picking these items up and I just keep them in my stash because they really are such a great deal than just buying true like signed blanks, because you can get such wonderful pieces at such cheap prices, and you just change the way that they look completely. So this is inspired by something I saw in a catalog last Christmas, and it's been in my mind for a long time, and I thought this is the perfect sign to do this with. So I taped off all of the frames so I could paint it and not have any paint get on that beautiful frame that was on this. And I'm just going to peel that back after giving this probably about 4 coats to get the coverage that I wanted. Now, I did use my cutting machine to cut this out because I have the world's worst handwriting. If you guys have watched me, you know that I do not freehand anything well. Stenciling, I do stencil quite a bit though. I don't usually use my cutting machine all that often, but I did want to for this particular project because I loved this font here. And I'll list the font down in my description box, so if you want to try and replicate this, you can. But stencils would be so cute, even using Dollar Tree stickers. Now, you can have different red trucks from anywhere. I'm just showing you a few that were in my stash from Dollar Tree, or one was off of a garland. I have this wood cutout that I never used last year, and I thought it would be really cute because I wanted to put the red buffalo check paper on it. So I'm just tracing out the silhouette really of this truck here, and I'm just going to cut it out, and then we'll glue it on just using that famous purple school glue you guys have seen me use 100 times. I really do love this glue. It works so well. So I just carefully line up my truck as best as I can. I didn't cut it so exact. I wanted there to be a little bit of an edge because I will, after I use my brayer, of course. This just helps get that really good bond with your paper and your surface. I take my sander here, just my fingernail file, and definitely a fingernail file works so good for these little pieces like this. And I will just sand off the edge of the paper to have a really good look. Now, if you're worried about paper edges, I'm just taking a little bit of black paint on my baby wipe and going around the edge to cover any type of white paper that you might see when you do that. Now, I have this tree that this is a Dollar Tree tree, and I thought it was so cute and bushy. I did just use some, not pliers, but some trimmers. I can't think of the word right now, but anyway, I cut the wire off. Wire cutters, that's probably what they're called. I cut the wire cutters, use the wire cutters. My goodness, I'm struggling. Anyway, I cut the base of the tree off, and I'm just using some hot glue to glue this into the truck here. And then to have it fit flat on the surface, I did just kind of bend apart the bristles on this, I almost called it a brush, but it's a tree. It's like a bristle brush tree, I think is what they call them, or a bottle brush tree, something. You'll have to let me know down in the comments for sure what it's called, because I am not quite sure. My mind is still trying to get totally into this Christmas mode here. But I'm just using some little blocks there, as you saw, to glue onto the back of the truck to help pop it out, have a little bit of a 3D look. And if I needed to cut any of those bristles off on that tree, I did that to make sure that it would fit as flat as I could on the surface. And then I'm just using my heat gun to get any of the hot glue little strings that you get. This just kind of melts those away really easily. But look at how darling this sign is. I think it is so cute. And you just read that and you just kind of can't help but sing it in your head. And I just think that little plaid truck looks darling on here. What do you guys think of this piece? Do you like it?
This DIY was inspired by an ornament that I saw at one of the local craft stores. It was this cute little snowman, and I thought it would be perfect to use these Dollar Tree cubes on. So I just take 3 of those, and then using some wood glue and some hot glue, I just clamp them together just to kind of get that really good hold on these. And I kind of make them a little bit askew. That's how the ornament I saw was, and I thought that was really super cute to kind of give definition. I had these little pieces of scrap wood that I'm just going to cut down to make a little hat out of, but you could easily do this out of anything else that you have, or even another sign or some of the wood pieces you get from Dollar Tree. It was just a couple little pieces that I had. And then I had a little bag of these stars that I recently got. I bought a big bag of a bunch of wood pieces at a garage sale, or a yard sale, and so I'm just using the heck out of all of that stuff. So I'll just color the hat, or paint, not color. We're gonna paint the hat black, and then as you saw earlier, I did paint my snowman in whatever color of white that you have or you want to use, and then I am painting these little stars white as well. And then I'm just taking another one of these stars, and I just kind of cut one of the little points off of them to paint orange for my little carrot nose, but whatever you'd like to use to do that would work fine. I also sanded the edges to kind of give it a very distressed look, and then I'm going to go around with some antiquing wax on all of the edges, and then I'll just kind of brush that on and then lightly wipe it off with the baby wipe just to give a little bit of a stained look and just a little bit more definition. I do the same thing with the hat, just go around the edge with a little bit of antiquing wax on my brush and then just wipe it off. Just again, it just kind of makes the wood look a little bit, I mean, honestly, it looks like toasted marshmallow to me with the snowman with the white and a little bit of stain on there. But anyhow, so I will take the little stars. I'm going to use those as buttons for my little snowman, and I'm just going to kind of sand the edges down. And then just using a little bit of hot glue, I just stick one right there on his little tummy, and then I go ahead and put the other one on the next little block there for his little tummy there. So cute. It's kind of starting to come together. What do you guys think? I don't know. I was really skeptical about how this would look, but I absolutely love it. So I just decide which side I want the hat to go on, and so I will just glue this on top of his head, again just using hot glue, and then I will glue the top portion of his top hat on there, and then just kind of center it as best you can. I don't really measure a lot with it when it comes to centering things. I kind of really like that askewed look. And then his little nose, just a little bit of hot glue. And honestly, you could stop right here and just leave this guy like this. He looks absolutely darling without a face painted on, but I thought I would try and paint a face. And you guys hear me talk about all the time that I never freehand anything, and you may see why here in just a minute. You'll have to let me know how I did. But I put some little eyes on there, just dipping the end of my paintbrush into my paint, and then I do kind of make them a little bit bigger because I want him to have a bit more fuller eyes. And so I kind of I'll go back in and put a little bit more. You can use a dotting tool to do this too, but the end of your paintbrush works just fine. So there's his eyes. So far we're good, but here's the smile. So I do the first little part of my smile, and honestly, it would have been cute if I had just left it like that, but I thought, oh, I'll make it a full curve smile. And again, guys, I am not a painter. I don't freehand a lot. Well, I don't detail paint, but his smile ends up looking okay, I feel like, but it is definitely just kind of a little bit ski-wampus. But it's definitely cute and definitely homemade, and I absolutely love it. So I just put a little bit of those little dimple type defining features on the end of his smile there, and I think the face turns out pretty okay. You'll have to let me know what you think. But I take a little bit of Dollar Tree ribbon and I cut it down because I didn't have any of the exact size to fit onto his thing, and I wanted to add a little bit of evergreen into his little hat there. So I just glue each of the ends of the ribbon down here. This is pretty self-explanatory, just using some hot glue and wrapping that around, and you just cut it to size. You could even make like a little scarf for him if you wanted to, if you'd rather not decorate the top hat, or you could do both. And then I will just glue on my little evergreen there and just add some little berries to it. I think this turns out super, super cute. I just take a gold acrylic paint marker and just touch up where the styrofoam shows through. That's just a hack for you guys. If you ever have the styrofoam peeking through on your berries, just take the same color marker and touch it up. But what do you guys think of him? I think he turned out so cute. I am absolutely in love with him. And he was so easy to do.
I love using bells in my Christmas decor, and I did pick this one up at Walmart. It was $3.98, and it has this word Merry written on it. And maybe you have something like this in your decor already, or you're trying to figure out like Maybe you're over the words being written all over everything. So I'm just showing you on this piece here that if you just take your fingernail file or some sandpaper and just lightly go over these words, they will come right off. Now you could spray paint over it. That would also be an easy option. I'm just showing you kind of how to make an upgrade on this cute little bell here, or get rid of some words maybe that you don't want on there. So I just will go back and forth getting that off of here. And then since you're kind of scuffing up the paint job, I will go around the entire bell and I will sand all of it so that way the texture matches everywhere. Using the smallest amount of black chalk paint on my brush, I'm going to go around the lip of this bell. It's not a super big lip on there, so it doesn't quite, I just am kind of giving you that enameled look on here. So it's totally optional, but since I am making this look a little bit distressed, I will take just the littlest bit of that black chalk paint and kind of go give a little bit of distressing around this bell so it looks aged and not so pristine. So depending on your style, or if you like things distressed, I know it is a matter of whether or not it's a personal preference or not. You'll just do what you would like to, but I'm just showing you with mine just very, very lightly putting a little bit of distressing on here. Now I have these picks that I did pick up at Hobby Lobby. They're 50% off right now, so they were 50 cents each. So I have 2 of those. So that puts me, I'm trying to keep this under $5. So this puts me right at my $5 limit. I have a bag of Christmas scraps of greenery. I love to buy the Walmart greenery at 97 cents and then just use it to just kind of pick from. So I'm taking just a couple of picks from that I have from scraps and gluing that onto each side. Totally optional, but I'm just showing you how you can just take a bell and totally give it a makeover to match your decor. I really do think 2 of these would be beautiful side by side, so that you could do that if you had the budget to do that as well. You can see I'm just using 4 little tips of this pick scraps that I have to glue all around there, and then I'm using 2 of these little picks from Hobby Lobby. Now I cut off the long wires on them, and then the excess wires, you can see I'm just going to take my pliers, wrap that around so it's not going to scratch the bell, it's not going to cut you, and just clamp that down. And it gives it a perfect size and shape there to be able to glue down. And I do the same thing on both sides of the bell. Now, if you did want to keep your budget down or you don't have the greenery, just doing this on one side of the bell would be fine if you're going to have a definite hanging from like the front and back. So that way just the front side has the greenery on it. I opted to do both sides on mine. Again, just giving you some ideas of what you could do. Maybe you've got a bell at home or something that you want to kind of give a refresh to or a makeover. I think this is a great idea. I think this turned out so classy. It is such a very classic look. Bells are always going to be in style with your Christmas decor, and what a fun way to give a refresh to something that I had that I didn't love the look of. What do you guys think of this? Every year I see these cute little candy cane ornaments or decor that Dollar Tree has. I always pick up a few, and I thought I would have my take at doing a makeover on them, make them look a little more country and a little more farmhouse and just the tinsel look that they come with. So I'm just taking some red and green fabric and I just tore that into several strips. You maybe just need maybe like a yard of a strip of fabric total for each side of the candy cane. You can just kind of eyeball it or use some scraps of what you have, but I'm just going to remove that tinsel. It comes off very easily. You just kind of find an end and it just kind of spirals off of there. You'll notice that there are some little pegs all around the outside of the form of the candy canes. That's what holds the tinsel on. Once you wrap your fabric around there, we're not going to see that at all, so don't worry about those. So I'm just starting at the bottom. I'm going to do a contrasting like a red and a green since it's traditional Christmas colors, but just use whatever colors you want, or you want to do the same colors, whatever. It's just have fun with it and make it yours. I just thought this was kind of fun to do the contrasting red and green. One side being plaid, another side having the stripes on there, I thought was really cute. So I just glued this to the end of my candy cane form, and then I'm just wrapping it around, just making sure as you wrap that fabric that you're going over each layer so you're not going to be able to see that form at all through it. When I get to the end of this strip of fabric, I'm just going to glue that down. That's just going to make it so I can start another strip. With my red fabric, I had a strip long enough that I could just keep going, but my green fabric that I had, since it was a scrap, I didn't have quite as long of a piece, so that's why I'm kind of having to glue it right here. So to pick up my next strip, I'm just going to place a little bit more glue down there, and I'm just going to start this and start wrapping it around again. Now, since this is connected in the middle, you just kind of have to work around that, just kind of going up and over the candy cane form, covering as much of that form as you can. And you'll see when I get to the red color, the green was a little bit easier to do since it was the first color I started with. The red, I'll kind of show you how I work around that, but you end up not being able to see the form at all. But fear not, because we're going to put a little bit of a floral thing on here that's going to cover that middle part. So even if you were to see it or you can't get it to line up just right, it's going to be covered anyway, so you don't have to pay so much or stress about it or pay so much attention to it. So now I'm just going to do a second layer of fabric on each side. This is just because when you look at it, you could still kind of see the little pokey things out coming from the form that I didn't really want to see. I probably would have been fine to leave it, but I thought it would just make it a little bit more plush and nice to add a second layer of fabric. So that's completely optional. You can look at it when you do yours and decide if you would like to do that. It's not 100% necessary, but it does make it look a little bit more high-end in my opinion. So now I'm starting on that red side of the candy cane, and I'm doing the same, just starting at the base. You could start at the top, I guess, if you wanted. I just found it easier to start at the base and just wrapping that around. I really love this red striped fabric because it really kind of mimicked the candy cane, so I was really pleased with how it turned out. Now you can see I'm at that middle part of the form here, so I'm just going to place some glue down so that will hold it in place right there. And I'm kind of just going to pinch it with my thumb, and just obviously don't burn yourself. If you need to use finger protectors, do that. But I'm just holding it down for that to dry and solidify a little bit. And then I will just stretch that fabric up over the top of that candy cane form and kind of start wrapping it that way. Just making sure that I can go back over if I need to cover up any of that form showing through. The nice part was, to be honest with you, is this was the red fabric. So if you could see a little bit of that red form peeking out, you couldn't really tell. But again, I will go over this again with a second layer. Plus we will have a little floral swag in the middle to cover any areas that you might be able to see. But I feel like I did a pretty good job with not having any of that form peek through. I love making vintage tags to add to things, especially at Christmas time. And so I'm just taking a generic tag here and I'm just going to wrinkle it and crinkle it to give it that really aged look. I just picked these up in a package at Hobby Lobby or even like Staples, you'd be able to find them. But I'm using some distressing ink that's going to age this. So I start with the yellowing one to make it look really vintage. And then I just keep adding a little bit of the darker colors very lightly. You can see how it picks up all of those wrinkles and crinkles, really makes that look aged. I do make sure I go around all of the edge of the tag as well, just so that way you can't see any of the original white on it. Now while that's drying, I'm just taking a couple little pieces of some greenery. These are just from, I keep a little bag of all of my little pieces off of my stems that I use. And this was just some little boxwood from Walmart and then some of the juniper, I believe, from Walmart. But use whatever scraps you have or just a couple little pieces off of a pick. And I'm just using a little bit of twine to wrap around the top to give it like a finished branch look there, so that way you don't see the little plasticky ends on it. And then I'm just going to use some twine to tie this onto my candy canes. Now I did put a little dot of glue behind it to help hold it there, but I also wanted to tie it just to give it a little bit more security. You're not going to see those ties at all unless you look at it directly from the back. When I turn this over, I'm just going to fluff up that greenery and make sure that it looks nice and centered, kind of get it positioned. If you need to add a little bit more glue behind some of your leaves to help them stay where you want, go ahead and do that. Now I'm using my Dollar Tree alphabet stamps here to have this little tag say candy canes. My friend Linda always uses her click stamps from Amazon, and every time I pull out my Dollar Tree stamps, I'm so jealous. I need to save up and buy some of those. The Dollar Tree stamps work well, but they are very tedious to use. So just a fair warning, but they definitely get the job done. So I just tied that tag on there, and then I have this little plaid ribbon here. This was given to me on a gift from years ago that I've just kind of been hanging on to, and I loved the really vintage feel. I love that it's kind of a red plaid. Since I had the red stripe on the candy cane, I thought it contrasted really well and kind of brought home that vintage look. Now I just tied a loop with some twine and glued that onto the back and let that dry really well so I could use this as an ornament to hang. That's totally optional. It would be even cute hanging off like your China hutch door or something like that. I just think this turned out so beautiful. Definitely an upgrade from that Dollar Tree tinsel. I feel like it's a great form that's underneath there, and you can definitely let your creativity fly with this and make it your own to match your home. What do you guys think of this? I picked up this frame from the thrift store, and I also have this darling Santa ornament from Walmart. He was just a couple of dollars that I got, and this is the frame right here. It was $1.50 that I picked up. I hate this twine bow on there. I'm not sure the original picture frame came with that. I think that might have been added afterwards, but I wasn't a fan. Now, I did a project with this same Santa face last year, and it was wildly popular. It was very Victorian, very neutral, so I thought I would do this one adding a pop of color. Now, I didn't love the pink color on the frame, so I thought I would paint it black, and then I'm going to use a crackle medium. Now, in full disclosure, if I had to do this again, I don't think I would do this with the colors I'm using. I'm going to do a red over it, but the problem with the crackle medium is you can't do multiple coats of the paint because you'll paint right over like the crackle aspect that you had. So when I'm playing the crackle medium down here, I'll just kind of walk you through this and I'll show you what I mean. So you just want to put kind of a thin layer of this crackle medium all over your darker colored surface. And then when you go back in after this dries, it's going to make your paint do this really cool crackle texture. I did red paint, and if you know with red paint, it takes several coats to get a good coverage to have a bright red. And so I feel like if I had done a brighter green, that would have worked a little bit better. But I was really just kind of wanting to go for a red and white look. But it almost has, I don't know, you could see the black paint through even without the crackle medium there. So I think if I was to do it again, I would just start with painting the frame red a couple of times, doing a couple coats, and then going back in with a little bit of black dry brushing to kind of distress it, or maybe not even at all. It looks great in the end, but just in full disclosure, I thought I would share that with you. So you can kind of see how when it dries, it really is just a dark red because you can see a lot of the black through it. Now I have this is just some sheet music that I printed off. I just Googled Christmas sheet music free printable. I found this Joy to the World that I printed out, and I'm just going to match it, cut it to the size of the frame. Now this glass does not come out of the frame, so I'm going to be gluing it to the front, which I actually do like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crumple this up. I love to make the paper look like it's aged and old. It brings texture into a project, and it also just kind of brings a little, I'm going to age it, so it'll have a little bit of a contrast color to it. And I love the way it turns out. Now this is just the distressing ink that you can pick up at Michael's, Hobby Lobby. I think I got mine at JoAnns actually. So this stuff is wonderful. These are just kind of little sample pads that I've had. The ink is starting to dry out, but I just mist it with my little mister bottle, and it works great. So until I have to buy new ones, I'm just using these little sample sizes. When you go over them with the different colors, it will just pick up all of the little crumpled areas that you made and just really make it look aged. So this is just some Mod Podge I'm putting down on the frame here and just kind of getting that all over, and then I'll just place this paper down and then just gently push it in. Now because we rubbed that distressing ink over all the crumpled parts, even though this is going to lay flat on the glass, you'll still see all of those wrinkles and everything because we did that texture and that distressing ink. It's really cool. And I'm just placing my Santa down there to see how it looks. Now I apologize, my camera stopped recording right here, which I don't know why, but you can see here I'm just taking some little ends of a pick and I glue on either side of the top of the frame there. And then I'm just taking this ribbon right here that I have that matches all of my Christmas decor. And I'm just showing you that I glued the little picks on either side. Now I just took my ribbon and I did kind of just like a circle like this, and then you'll just take it and fold it in the middle so it crumples down like a bow, and then you just glue a little piece of ribbon around it to pinch it in the middle. And you can just put a couple, like a strip behind for tails if you want to have the little tails on there, and then I just glued that piece on. I also just took some E6000 and some hot glue to put on the back of my Santa, and that's what's holding him down. You definitely want that E6000 because he is heavy. So if you pick up this Santa at Walmart, just know that he's heavy. You're gonna want that extra hold. I love the pop of color in this one. The one I made last year was very neutral, but I love that pop of red and the greenery on there. I think that really makes this piece. What a beautiful addition to your Christmas decor.
I am such a sucker for a really good wreath, and I fell in love with this holiday Magnolia wreath, but check out that price. I totally had sticker shock for $110. No way. We definitely can do better. Hobby Lobby has these beautiful Magnolia wreaths. They have them year round in their floral section. Their normal price is $50. Guys, do not pay $50 for this wreath. Their floral goes on sale every other week. Buy it when it's 50% off. The quality is unmatched. Even the Magnolia floral arrangements and wreaths that I saw at Magnolia Farm in Waco were not anywhere near what this wreath is. So definitely pick one up when you have the chance. The nice thing is I can dress this wreath up for Christmas, and then everything is removable. So I can take it all down and have this wreath for the rest of the year. So I bought 3 evergreen sprigs and cut them down to be 6. And then I bought 1 sprig of berries or pick of berries, and I cut it down to have 6 little sections also. I'm just bending the little stem on the back of the evergreens to kind of mimic the shape of the wreath. And then what I do is hold it really close to that base of the wreath, and then using some floral wire, I just wind it on kind of like a twist tie, if you will. And I'll go sometimes to the front and then to the back, like bring the wire around to the back, twist it, and if it's long enough, bring it back to the front and twist it, if that even makes sense. I'll let you just kind of watch what I do as I twist all of these on, but I just kind of go around sporadically with the wreath, making it symmetrical between the evergreens and then the berries. Before I wire the berries in, I do kind of what I guess you would call a dry fit with all of them to make sure that the spacing is good, that I like the different picks in each different area that I'm placing it. There's such a bold statement on the wreath that I wanted to make sure that they did look really good where they were. I'm going to remember to remove that price tag because I want people to think I bought this at Kirkland's. Look at how good it looks. I love it. You guys, these Magnolia wreaths, or the leaves on the wreath, are so easy to manipulate and kind of move around to fill out where you need to. I love them. Here is a look at the inspiration piece from Kirkland's website that was $110. Here is mine. What do you guys think of this one? I love how it turned out. Here it is on my front door, and I would say that less than $40. So from $110 to $40 is not bad. Plus, I can use this wreath year round after I take out the evergreen sprigs and the berries.
Now this is such a fun and easy project, and you're just going to use calendar pages. Now I'm showing you the Dollar Tree calendar page, as well as this is just a calendar. I actually have my mom save all of her old calendars for me because she has such fun different designs on them. And this is to show you, you can use any type of calendar. Check your thrift stores for them. If you have like a friend that you see has a really cute calendar, ask them what they do with it at the end of the year, if you could possibly have it. A lot of times they're more than happy to give them to you if you're going to make something fun out of them. So I'm just taking a sign that I had from Hobby Lobby that I purchased on clearance, and I did have to place a little bit of scrapbook paper in the top and the bottom to fill in just a little bit of a gap because it was not completely the size of my calendar page, which is totally fine. You're just going to cut it down to size to fit. Sometimes you'll worry about, oh, I'm going to cut part of the design off. It looks fine in the end. You're just going to work with what you have. So you can see I'm just going to place this down. I just put a layer of Mod Podge down. Now this particular calendar page was a lot thicker than the Dollar Tree calendar pages if you've worked with those. So it was almost like cardstock consistency, like a shiny cardstock consistency. So it was really nice to work with. I wasn't going to have a lot of wrinkles, but I do end up having to use some of the purple Elmer's glue stick on the edges to help them completely stay down. So I'm just using that as a different alternative to the Mod Podge to make sure that you keep that edge down flat. So I'll show you that here in just a moment. I'm just using some saran wrap right here. That just helps, or plastic wrap. It just helps get all of any bubbles or wrinkles out without using your fingers that would maybe snag or rip a design or something like that. But here's where I add that glue stick just to make sure. Sorry for my hair getting in there, but this is just going to make sure that that edge is down, because I kept noticing it like wanting to roll back up with the Mod Podge, and this stuff is magic. You know that I love to work with this medium much more than I do actual Mod Podge, but for the nature of this particular video, I'm using Mod Podge in a lot of my crafts. So I'm just taking some antiquing wax on a brush, and this is going to hide any edge. If maybe you had an uneven cut or didn't maybe quite meet, you're going to do your best to have even cuts and meet the edge of your project that you're working with. But this is going to disguise if there's any imperfections. So I'm just going around the edge. This is also going to create almost like a frame or vignette to help focus your eye into the middle of the design, and you're just going to pounce up and down. And I end up with what's left on the brush going over the entire design. This just adds a little bit of extra embellishment. You could even go over with some Mod Podge on the little snow and sprinkle some glitter if you wanted to add a little bit of extra shine. That would be so cute too. But you can see how it just kind of adds a little bit more of an aged look. This is a beautiful sign. You could sell this if you had a craft booth, and you can see how fun it is to look for think of all the different calendar pages you've seen over the course of your life and how fun some of those designs are, and how they literally are works of art, and they're so fun to work with, and it makes this beautiful sign. It's a quick project, it's an easy project, and man, it makes such an impact. Have you guys worked with calendar pages before? I'd love to know what you guys made with them. I love that Dollar Tree carries these Christmas tree cutouts because they're so fun to do different projects with. So I have a few of these in my stash. So I just picked one up, and I'm just going to place this on a little piece of cardboard, and I fill the little hole with some hot glue and scrape that off. So that way it takes care of that. There's not going to be that hole. You're not going to see that anymore. I picked this napkin up. I found these at Home Goods. That's where I get a lot of my napkins because they always have such a good selection. If you have any other tips on places to look for napkins, I do like the Dollar Tree ones. I feel like the Home Good ones are a little bit higher quality, so I feel like they're a little easier to work with, and they tear a lot less than the ones from like Dollar Tree or Dollar General, but you can still find some really cute ones there. But if you have any other suggestions, let me know down in the comments on where to look for fun napkin designs. Now I'm just placing some Mod Podge down on the sign here. That's going to give us a good base to place this napkin down on. And this napkin does the pattern kind of where the napkin folds in half. The Christmas trees kind of change a different angle on there, so you can see on the top half of the tree it looks like they're upside down on the bottom half of the tree. It's just the way the napkin is. There's no getting around it. So I just decided to embrace it, and we're good to go. I'm just using my hand and my fingers to work from the middle out to spread that napkin down and make sure that it has a firm hold. And then I'm going to go around the edge with a fingernail file here and gently file back that napkin. Now I have this vellum in my scrapbook stash that looks like music, like sheet music, music notes, and I thought it would be really pretty to layer on top of this napkin. So I'm just placing down some more Mod Podge, and honestly, I wish I had done, I kind of go back and forth on this. I wish I had just done some Elmer's glue, like the glue stick on this. I was trying to stick with Mod Podge for this particular design. It does wrinkle this up quite well, and it actually works to my favor. So it kind of depends on the look you're going for. If you want this vellum to lay flat, definitely use a glue stick that like disappears. I love the purple glue, Elmer's glue stick, but it worked fine for what I end up doing with it. So I embraced all of the wrinkles that come with this, and I'm just, you can see, getting a little bit of the scrap paper that was left over to cover the parts of the tree where the paper did not reach. And then I just trim that up with my scissors. Now I'm taking some antiquing wax and I'm going to rub over this. It's going to age it a bit. And this is when I realized that the wrinkles actually are going to be a good thing because I can highlight those. And I'm just taking one of these, this is like an antiquing stamp pad here that I have, and I'm rubbing it over all of those wrinkles, and you can see it's going to highlight all of those. So it's just giving it an extra aged look, which I really did end up liking. Now I have this little snowflake hanging thing there that I got the first snowflake from. It came from Dollar Tree. All of these actually came from Dollar Tree. So I'm just taking some different sizes and shapes of different snowflakes to put on here. A bunch of snowflakes would look really cute if you wanted to do a whole grouping of them instead of what I end up doing. So just keep that in mind. But I stain one with antiquing wax, and the other two I decided to paint white. And since it's Christmas time, I thought it would be really fun to add glitter, because at Christmas time I like glitter just a little bit, not a ton, but I thought it would be fun. So I just put some Mod Podge over the top, sprinkled that glitter on. You can see on the little bottom one here, I'm just putting it on, and then I'm just dumping this glitter on. It's just glitter I picked up at Walmart. There's all sorts of different sizes, different colors. I just love the real icy looking type of glitter, just a little shimmer here and there. I don't love it all over my house, but it really is kind of fun to add a little sparkle to some different projects. Now this came in a package of like 10 from Hobby Lobby. It was in the wedding section. It's like a place setting for like a dinner table. And I'm using the back side of it that I stained to make this little sign. And I have these little letters that I bought from somebody who cuts letters, like sells wooden alphabets. So you can, I just found them locally, but you can check like your craft fairs, Etsy, different places that will sell wood cutouts. Ask them if they'll do an alphabet for you, or see if they sell alphabets for you. Pick up something at Dollar Tree, use stickers. There's so many different options. I just happen to have the letters that spelled out Noel, so that's what I'm using here. And I went around the sign to add a little bit of embellishment with a paint marker. Just kind of add a little something. It looked a little plain just to have the Noel on there. So I'm just deciding where I want to place all of these snowflakes and where I want to glue them and where I want the sign. This is where it would be really cute, as I mentioned earlier, to have like several different snowflakes in different, more antique wax and some more of the sparkly ones, maybe non-sparkly ones or silver or gold, and just do a whole array of snowflakes on here rather than having the cute little sign on there. It's just a matter of personal preference. Make it your own. I'm just here to inspire you, so definitely do what you can or what you like. If there's something you don't like, that's totally fine. Just change it to be something that you do like. I felt like it needed a little extra texture of something to break up all of that wood pieces that I had glued there. So I just made a little finger bow out of twine. Just a couple loops was all that took. And I'm just going to tie that down the middle, and I will just glue that right at the corner top of the Noel sign, just with a little teeny bit of hot glue, just to bring that in there. Now, if you had something else you wanted to use instead of a bow, I know I add a lot of bows to things, that would be great too. Now, I thought I'd tie that twine in by on the trunk of the tree, wrapping that around several times very tightly. Kind of breaks up, makes it look like it's maybe tied in burlap or something like that. And along the back, I'm just going to do a strip of hot glue at the top and the bottom, just to lay those pieces down, and that's going to hold that twine in place. In that package of the small snowflakes, there were these gold stars, and I thought it would be darling to add that to the top there. So it does come with a little sticky foam piece there, but you definitely want to add some glue if you want it to be permanent. So just by adding a little bit of glue, I add that to the top, and that just really adds a little extra level of sparkle and something to the top of the tree. And how cute would this be, layered with some really fun Christmas dishes, like on your shelf or your china hutch, something like that. I feel that it's flat. You could add a little something on it to hang it somewhere or put it inside like a wreath on your door, but it's flat enough that you'd be able just to kind of tuck it in somewhere, so it just has that really rustic Christmas feel that it's going to bring into your decor.
I'm taking this cutting board sign from Dollar Tree. I love that they have these a lot more now because they're so fun to give makeovers to. So I'm just going to tear off the surface that is there. And this one was already peeling off pretty good, but you can see I just rip off anything that I can. And then I'm spraying some water on here. I just let that sit for a few seconds, and then I just use my putty knife to be able to scrape that off. It may take you a couple times of spraying this down and scraping in sections, but it does come off fairly easy and leave you with a very clean surface. And then I'm just going to paint the base color of whatever I want my cutting board to be. In this case, I'm putting a graphic on the cutting board, so I wanted a white background so it would really make that graphic pop. There are several different ways that you can add graphics to things. This particular method I love because I feel like most of us have a printer, and I just use a regular inkjet printer. This is just a piece of copy paper, just normal copy paper that you have, or printer paper, and just a gift wrap sheet of tissue paper. And all I did was just cut that tissue paper to be about an inch wider than my paper all the way around, so that way I can fold the tissue paper over my copy paper, and then you just want to tape it down. We're going to feed this through our printer, and so I need all of my edges, my raw edges of tissue paper, taped down so nothing gets caught up or hung up in the printer and rips. Now, just fair warning, if you've never tried this before and you go to try it and it totally is a disaster your first time, it happens to everyone. Give it a try. It's very easy, but you do just want to make sure the biggest trick is to tape down all the areas of the tissue paper, so that way when you feed this through, it's not going to snag at all. I feel like that's probably the biggest issue that I hear from people. But really, this is a simple process. You just want to make sure that when you feed this through your printer, it's printing on the side that the tissue paper is on. And I'm just showing you the edge is all taped there. I'll show you, you can even use painter's tape to do it with, and it works beautifully. Now, when I did try to place the graphic on my cutting board, I realized there was a little bit of negative space, and so I thought I would paint a ticking stripe at the bottom. So I just taped out a little bit of area, and with a stencil brush, just went over that with some red paint. It's what matched my graphic that I'm using, and I thought that added a little bit more visual interest onto the bottom to have those beautiful little stripes there. So here is the image after I have printed it out on the tissue paper. You can see how beautiful. I'll leave a link to this image. It's from one of my most favorite Etsy stores to get graphics from, so I'll leave a link to them down in my description box. But I just cut out all of the edges, being careful not to cut the graphic at all, and just remove it from the copy paper. Now, since I'm going to be using some Mod Podge and the Decoupage process to put this on my cutting board, I don't want a harsh line along the edges. I want a natural edge. So in order to achieve that, I just take a paintbrush and some water and go along the edge around the design. You want to make sure that you leave a buffer between where the water is going to be and your design, because that water does seep in really good to that tissue paper. And then you just tear out your edges to give that natural edge. Now, I just covered the entire surface of my cutting board with some Mod Podge. I like to use the matte Mod Podge when I'm doing this process here, so you don't have like a big shine to it. But if you like the shine, then use the gloss Mod Podge. Now I'm using some saran wrap or cling wrap here to pounce the design from the middle out. And you can see that if I have any wrinkles or anything, I just lift up that tissue paper and I can straighten that out. Now, if you go to lift your tissue paper and you find that you're going to have a problem or it's going to tear, you're just going to embrace it. You're just going to go with it, place it down and move forward. It's going to have a rustic look anyway, so it's going to be just fine. Now, I'm also taking a little bit of Mod Podge and going underneath each of my edges and then on top of my edges to seal them all, to make sure that they're not going to come up. I just want to make sure that they have a really good bond with the cutting board, and that way you're not going to have the image start to come up at all. And then you can use some clear coat spray, or in this case, I'm just putting some Mod Podge over to protect that design and the tissue paper. I know a lot of you have a lot of different methods of decoupage that you do, so if you have a different technique that works great for you, definitely try that with this sign and see if it works for you. Now I'm just going to take some of this really thick twine from Walmart, is where I purchased this, down their crafting aisle, and I'm just going to wrap it around 5 or 6 times around the top of the cutting board or the neck of the cutting board there. I thought this really added a nice like homespun touch to it. It makes it look really warm. It adds some visual interest. And I really love the color of the twine since I did kind of a gingerbread type print on it. The twine color kind of ties that in, I feel like, and it looks really good on there. So I just glued it onto the back there just very subtly, so that way I just trimmed it so it looks very smooth and clean on the back. But I just really think that that adds quite a really nice touch to it. What do you guys think? Do you guys like the twine on it? Now I just took some additional twine and I looped that through the top there. As you can see, I felt like this really just needed something that you could hang this with. And by tying it on in this particular way, if you were to hang it off of one of your cute little cutting board bars or something, you would be able to have it hang flat so the graphic would show. But how cute would this be hung with a bunch of traditional charcuterie or cutting boards and have that beautiful Christmas design on there? I go around the edge and I'm just sanding the edge. This is optional, but I do feel like when you paint the cutting board, you will want to do this because you want to clean up if any paint went over the edges or anything to give it a nice professional look. So that is why I do this. So how crazy you get with your distressing on there is totally up to you. But overall, I think this turns out beautiful. I feel like it looks just like something you would find in Mrs. Claus's kitchen, maybe. I love how this looks, and I think it's going to be a great addition for Christmas decor in my kitchen. What do you guys think of this one? I'm so excited to show you this DIY. It's almost like 4 DIYs in one, but I love how this turns out. So this cute little sign I found just recently, like this last week at Dollar Tree. It's a cute little laundry sign, and I loved that it had the little pegs on it. And I knew immediately what I wanted to do with it when I saw it. So I just sprayed some water on it, and I'm just using my putty knife to scrape off that glue. It may take you a few minutes to get all of that scraped off, but it worked better to scrape it than to sand it, in my opinion. Once that dries, I just take a little bit of white chalk paint on a chip brush and I'm just dry brushing this on. I just really wanted a nice faded look to it. So you can paint it a different color if you want or whatever you want to do with it, but that's the style that I was going for. Now I'm taking a sleigh from Dollar Tree. I'm actually going to do 3 different sleighs here in this DIY. This first one, I'm going to paint the base of the sleigh here, the part that you would write on, white, and then I'm going to paint the bottom part of the sleigh here just in black, just doing a traditional farmhouse palette. And each of the sleighs that I'm doing are each a different type of sleigh also. So if you can find a variation, do that, or whatever works or whatever you've got on hand. Now I'm taking some foam core board and I want a wreath to go on one of my sleighs, and so I didn't have a wreath small enough because these sleighs are kind of teeny, so I just thought I would make my own. The greenery here is just off of the boxwood picks that you pick up at Walmart. I love those boxwood picks. They're so, you can use them all year, and I feel like you can get so many projects out of them. So definitely when you're at Walmart, look at their florals and pick a couple of those up. You will not regret it. So now I just cut off the littlest, teeniest size of the leaves that I could, and I just glue them all the way around and fill in all the gaps and everything so you cannot see that. And you could use cardboard if you don't have foam core board, something like that. And now I'm just taking some little teeny tiny red berries. This is also off of a pick that I got at Walmart, and I just glued those all the way around just kind of to bring in a little pop of color into that. So now moving on to our second sleigh, I am going to stain with just my Waverly Antiquing Wax the portion of the sleigh that you would sit on here, like the base of that, and then on the bottom, and the name escapes me of what these would be called, like the blades of the sleigh maybe. I'm painting those black, and then I will stipple on some metallic here, silver, because I wanted this to look like maybe it was aged metal was kind of what I was going for, and so I just went all the way around to do that. This cute little deer ornament came from Dollar Tree. It came like 2 to a pack, so I just took this and put a decent amount of hot glue and just held that down till it was completely dry. I wanted this sleigh to look like it had a little bit of snow on it, so I'm just putting some white chalk paint on a chip brush and I'm just dabbing that up and down. And after I did this, and I'm just doing it kind of as if the sleigh was propped up against something where the snow would naturally fall, and I decided that the white paint wasn't cutting it, so I take a little Mod Podge, I do the same thing over the paint, and then I'm just going to take some glitter, and this would be completely optional. I know some people do not like glitter, but I just thought that it added a little something to this sleigh, and I just sprinkled that glitter over the top of this where that Mod Podge is, and I just shake that off, and I just think that adds the perfect touch of snow on there. And then you just kind of, when you can see I pull it upside down and I just tap it all off to get that off of there. And I just thought it looked so cute. So now I'm taking the third sleigh here, and I wanted to do this in a traditional like brown and red metal type of sleigh look here. So the base of the sleigh on these, I'm just taking some red paint, and I will get that on the sides here all over the bottom there. And then I'll also do that on like the crossbar, and you'll see how I do that here in just a second. You can see over there. And I just thought that would be really cute. In my mind, that's where the red part of the sleigh would be. And then I just use antiquing wax to do the rest of it. And so that's how that goes. And for some reason in my mind, that little piece, it was like a piece of wood that would be going up that metal would fasten to. So that's why I chose to do that. So anyway, I just went ahead around with my little emery board and distressed it so it looked like an aged sleigh. And then I even had like a little bit of black paint on a baby wipe there that I went over where I sanded to kind of give it more of an aged and an older look. I picked up this little Christmas tree. This came from like the little village section that Dollar Tree always has. And I just thought it would be really cute to have this tied onto this sleigh, like somebody's bringing their Christmas tree home for Christmas to decorate it. And I'm just kind of pushing the bristles. It's like a bottle brush. So I'm pushing those bristles out so that way it will lay a little bit flatter against my sleigh. And then I'm just using hot glue. I did take off the snow base of that because it didn't look very realistic, if you will, on there. So I just wrapped the base in some twine to kind of look like the trunk of the tree. And then I glued that on, and I decided to glue it on upside down, like that was how they had placed it, like it had just kind of fallen over on the sleigh. And I tied it down with some twine to look like the tree was tied down with rope, and just put a little teeny bow on the top of that. So now you can see I have this little wreath I'm going to put onto this sleigh, and I had this little ornament that came from Walmart. Dollar Tree has some cute little ornaments too that would be darling on there, or you wouldn't have to do one at all. I just really like the fact that it had a cute little thing on there to say sleigh ride, since I'm kind of going with the sleigh theme on here. And here's all three of these sleighs together. I just think they all turned out so cute. They were so fun to create. So now I'm going back to the base of the sign because we're going to let everybody know that they can park their sleighs here. So I'm just taping some tissue paper to just a regular piece of copy paper. And you just want to make sure that this it's like the dull side is what's up. So there's a shiny side and a dull side to tissue paper. I put the shiny side towards the paper because I want the ink to go onto the dull side of the paper. Now I just fed this through my printer like a piece of paper. I just found some script and wrote this in Word, put it through. I have an inkjet printer, not a laser printer. I just make sure that that ink is very, very dry before I put any Mod Podge. And you can see how the ink kind of bleeds through onto the paper. Now I'm taking a little brush with some water on it, and I'm just going around the parking, the sleigh parking, and just ripping that. This will give it a natural edge rather than a cut edge, and that way when you Mod Podge this down, it will kind of disappear into the background. So I just do a thin layer of Mod Podge, and I'm having a very hard time holding onto the sign, but I want to do this all over. So when you do this, make sure the Mod Podge goes all over, not just where your words go, because you want the sheen and the finish to look cohesive. And then I just did my best to eyeball how I wanted that centered, and then I work from the middle out with just dabbing my finger and making sure there are no wrinkles or anything, and I just kind of go up to the edge, and then you can kind of say I pull it taut there, and then keep doing that. And if your tissue paper will allow you to kind of pick it up if you get a wrinkle or two, do it, but if you feel that it's going to start to tear, just embrace the wrinkles and just let it be a part of the sign. So I take a little bit of Mod Podge and I go over the edge, not over the ink. I'm just going over the edge. Now, if this had dried for several days, I could probably go over the ink and be fine, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to seal this instead. I have this clear glaze Krylon, and I'm just going to spray this over the top. And I just make sure this goes all over to give the same sheen, and just a little spritz on there, and then I let that dry completely. Then after that's dry, I just take a little bit of white paint, and on my little brush, just very lightly dry brush over the letters to make it blend into the background of that sign. I just think that is super cute. I'll link the font name if I can down in my description box. And then I stained those cute little pegs, and I just screwed those back on and hung these little sleighs from it. And you guys, I think this turned out this might be one of my favorite Christmas crafts ever. It's so cute. It was so fun. You can personalize it. You could have all of like your kids or your grandkids decorate a cute little sleigh to hang from it. So next time you're at Dollar Tree, pick up one of those laundry signs and look for some cute little sleighs, or even if you had different ornaments you wanted to decorate and hang from it. It would be so cute.
I'm going to make a reindeer crossing sign, and I'm going to use this little ornament sign from Dollar Tree. So I'll just remove this top metal portion that I don't need, and I'm using this little wood round that I have to kind of finish off and trace that perfect circular shape so I can cut the top of this sign off. Now, the reason I didn't just use that wood round was because it is kind of warped, and I do want this to have a very flat shape to it. So I'm just going to paint this with 2 or 3 coats of red paint. You can do this in whatever color matches your decor the best. And I will leave a link to this graphic down in my description box. But I just found this on Etsy and I thought it was so darling, and I loved the font that it was in and the little name of all the reindeer around the edges. I thought it was so cute. And the holly and the ivy in the chorus, it does talk about the running of the deer. And I thought, what could be cuter than the running of the deer than to have a reindeer crossing sign to go with it. Now this part would be completely optional, but I like to make everything a little bit more farmhouse. So I do go out into my garage and just cut a few pieces of the salvaged barnwood that we have from one of our barns that we tore down. And I'm just going to make a background for this sign to go against. And to keep all of these pieces together to connect them, I'm just cutting a painter stick here in half that I will use as my piece to hold all of the background together. So you'll kind of see what I do with that here. And then, of course, since it's barnwood, I've got to brush it off and make sure that there's nothing gross on it or anything. So I have these pieces and I just measured them with my sign on the top of it to see how big I wanted to cut it and how much I wanted showing through. Right now, I am just trying to decide if I want like the rougher, more rustic side to show or the smoother side to show. So it's whatever is, preference on this one. Again, this is just absolutely optional. You could easily, if you want to do the whole process I'm doing, do a canvas or do any type of bigger sign that you have and do whatever kind of finish on that you would like. You don't have to have barnwood to do this part. So I'm just using some wood glue on these painter sticks to hold these together, and I quickly realized after I glue this down that this is not exactly how I needed to do this because I need to be able to clamp this down onto the wood. And so I have to move it up a little bit to the edge because these clamps that I have right here were not working for how I wanted to do it. And I decided for a little bit of security to put some wood glue on the inside of my slats. So definitely follow this process I'm doing right here. And then when I place down my cross piece of wood at the top, I put it close enough to the top that I can just use some little, I'm not even sure what type of clamps these are called, just some like hand clamps maybe, just to kind of clip that onto it because that would give it the best hold. And I just let that dry completely. I'm showing you here like I'm hitting this pretty hard and it is not coming apart. You definitely could use some staples or anything in there that you would like to, but I just had the wood glue, so that's what I went with. This sign looks so cute with that barnwood in the background. So again, you could even stop here and just leave it like that because that definitely looks cute. But I am using a piece of styrofoam in the back of this sign, and I'm cutting a bunch of different types of Christmas picks. I got some from Hobby Lobby. It's a mixture of that and Dollar Tree picks. So whatever you have, of course, since I'm going with the holly and the ivy theme, I thought it would be fun to use a lot of holly throughout it. And I did realize the bottom of the barnwood there is not, it's not finished like where I cut it. It's kind of that raw wood. So I'm using antiquing wax on there and it's the exact color of the barnwood. So you can't get much more farmhouse than that. So I will just glue the styrofoam piece into the center there. And I decide that I want to use some E6000 and stick that on there. And then I just hold it until it stays. But you can see how I just go through and I'll place just sporadically how it looks pleasing to my eye is how I go through and place all of these little picks in here all the way around.
I just love these little crystal icicle-y looking branches that came from Dollar Tree, and so I just put these on all of my corners. Actually, I think I put a little bit more than all of the corners, but I just love how these look, and I thought they looked so pretty kind of since they were hanging over the edges more. They just brought a little bit of sparkle into it, which sometimes when you're doing farmhouse and barnwood and stuff, it's fun to have a little bit of sparkle like that, kind of glams it up a bit. But I'm just using some E6000 and some hot glue for that long and short-term hold here on the styrofoam. And you know, since hot glue sometimes doesn't work the best with styrofoam, you want to just make sure that you hold this sign down to make sure that it stays. And so I just kind of hold it for a little bit. But look at how cute this is looking. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm taking just some antiquing wax that's left on my brush from when I stained the raw part of the wood, and I just go around the edge to give it a little definition and then just brush it over the top. What it does is kind of make those letters pop a little bit more. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it definitely made a big difference in person. Right, what do you guys think? Did I do a good job with this one? I am so excited about it. I think it turned out beautifully. You can also add like a hanger on the back if you want to hang it.
I'm going to take this piece of Dollar Tree fencing, and this is typically found at Dollar Tree in the springtime, but I buy them like 4 or 5 at a time. I always have some in my stash because you can do some really wonderful projects with them. So they're very easy to cut, but you may want to use an older pair of scissors. That way you're not going to ruin any, but I'm just going to cut the stakes off of the bottom, and then it just curls up like this. Now it's typically meant to go like in a straight line. You can connect one section to another section, but I'm going to bend this up into a circle shape here. And it does have these little clamps on the side, which would work just fine if you want to stop here and have them connect just like this, but it doesn't quite make the most perfect of circles. So as I'm bending this, I'm deciding, because it kind of just really wants to fold really kind of funky right there. So I decide to cut these off completely, and I'm going to use another method to close this off. So again, these are just plastic, a little bit on the thicker side, but you can still use your scissors. Just be very safe as you're doing this to not cut yourself, but they're pretty easy to cut. After I have all of the excess pieces removed, I'm just going to take some zip ties to close this. Now, it doesn't matter the color of zip ties you're going to use unless you're going to leave this black, but I'm going to spray paint mine, and so it truly doesn't matter the color of zip ties, but they're just in the automotive section at Dollar Tree. And I want to line up the edges of this so they fold really nice and neatly over one another. So I'm just going to start my zip tie. I'll do one at the bottom, and then I will do one closer to the top. Now, as I was doing this, I felt that there was a little bit of a sharpness there from where I had cut that little connector piece. So I just took my fingernail file and went over it a couple of times on both of them, and it smoothed it right out. So here I'm just attaching the zip tie to the top portion here, and then as I have these both connected, I can make sure to line up the edges exactly where I want them, and I kind of overlap them so it looks like one piece there. So this just looks like a continuous cylinder shape here that was made like this and welded like this, and you're not seeing that it was a piece that you put together that was like a flat piece. And I just tightened those zip ties both at the top and at the bottom. Now, one trick that I do is, because there's all of these little extra pieces here that do want to kind of keep that flat shape that this originally had. So if you lightly blast it with a heat tool, I'm sure maybe even a hairdryer might get hot enough to do this. You just want to kind of bend these pieces in. Just be careful not to burn yourself, but I'm just blasting those, bending them inward a little bit, so that way they kind of have a curve to them rather than kind of stick out. You can kind of see at the top there, those little curvy pieces are kind of more sticking out rather than bending in. So I just take my time and go through and blast each little section and kind of give that a little bend so that way it takes its shape. I flip it upside down, and I also blast the base of this to kind of give a little bit more curvature to that solid base piece there. So I'm just running my heat tool along that, and then I will just kind of bend it into shape here, more into a cylinder here, so you can kind of see how I do that. I even will like roll it on the table just to give it a nice curvature to all of the pieces, so that way it doesn't, I mean, we want this to look high end. We don't want it to look like it's a piece of plastic. We really are trying to go for that look to fool somebody that it's like actual metal. As I did this, I realized there's a little gap on that space at the end, and so when I set it up, I was just kind of seeing how it looked, and I did need to close that a little bit. So I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue down in there, and then I will just clamp that with just some of the Dollar Tree clamps to hold that until that dries, and that's just going to seal that there at the bottom, and that way it will sit nice and flush. So now you can see we have this perfect cylinder shape, and I did take it outside into my garage and I spray painted it with this spray paint here. I'm loving this color. It's not quite a white and it's not super creamy, but it works really well with plastics and it has a matte tone to it. So I really like the way that it looks on this metal here. It's not metal, it's plastic, but you get what I'm saying. So now I just want to have this have a little bit of an aged look. And so we want some of that black to come through. At least I do. You could definitely skip this step if distressing things was not your style. But I go along all of the edges with my fingernail file, and this is just going to let some of that black show through. So it looks like it's been actual wrought iron that was painted, that maybe has sat and aged for a long time. We're going for that really authentic, like vintage look here. I go through all of the little curves, as you can see here with my fingernail file. I stick that in, and anywhere it looks like natural aging might occur, I'm just going to take my time and focus on that. I even take my fingernail and kind of go over some of the edges there. The paint is fairly easy to scrape off on here, and so it was very easy to do that. So now you could stop and leave it just like this, but I really wanted to make this have a very wintry vibe, look like winter wonderland. So I'm taking some Mod Podge, and then I also bought, this is just some fake snow that I bought, like a glittery snow. I bought it at Walmart, and I also have a couple different sizes of glitter that I'm using. I saw one of these at Vintage Market Days that had this really cool finish with the glitter, and I really loved the way that it looked, very wintry. You could easily leave it, and then you could have this for all year long. But again, I just really wanted to bring that really glistening look to it. So here I'm using my Mod Podge, and this is in one of those containers I got at Dollar Tree. I put my antiquing wax in it, and a lot of you messaged me and said it would be perfect for Mod Podge. So thank you for the suggestion. I totally listened, and I have my Mod Podge in one of those containers, and it's really easy to just squirt along all of the edges of this. And you don't have to be super perfect, because you're going to, as you can see, I'll like smush it down into all of my mixture of the different glitters and that snow. And I just go, you can see I'm not super careful, but you know, you want a decent amount on there. Just depends on how much glitter you want, and I just will roll it in there, and this just really gives it a nice shimmer and shine. I am not normally a big glitter fan. However, at Christmas time, I really do like a little bit of that sparkle. I feel like if you're gonna do it, that's the time of the year. So again, it's a matter of personal preference. You could stop here, but we're just going for a really fun wintry sparkle look. I am really happy with the final result. I really think this looks very beautiful. I love the contrast with that white color, the shimmer, and then that rustic looking tree. I just picked this tree up at the local craft store. You can get any type of tree or any type of flower or something to stick in there, but I really think this does bring that woodsy vibe into your home for Christmas with a little sparkle. I saw something similar to this project scrolling through the internet, and I was originally going to gather my own sticks that I had to do this, but I found this little bundle of sticks that had the snow and glitter covering to them at Hobby Lobby. It was $5, and then so half off, so it was $2.50, and it meant that I didn't have to go gather together sticks of wood, cut them to the right size, and bundle them together. So if you have a lot of sticks and you want to do that, by all means, take that route, but I did find these at Hobby Lobby. If you have access to one of those, or maybe even another craft store might have something similar. I found these little trees at Walmart, and I bought 3 of them because I thought I would kind of stack them in here almost like they were growing. This is just kind of a little woodsy vignette that we're going for. Just something perfect to tuck into the background of your Christmas decor that you have, just to bring that greenery in and that nice rustic outdoor look with they look like logs, but it's really like the sticks, but it's kind of giving the impression of a log there.
And so I'm just arranging these in here, and then once I have my placement, I'll go in with some hot glue just to make sure that they stay there. You wouldn't have to do this step if this is something that you maybe were going to dismantle at the end of the season and use them for another project, or set it up each year or use them for different projects. But in order to have them be more permanent, just stick a little bit of hot glue in there. Now it was beautiful just like this as it was, and I'm just making sure to get, before that glue dries, all of the trees positioned exactly how I want them. But I felt like it was missing a little something. So I have this bag of different mosses from the craft store, and I thought it would be kind of fun and give it more of an earthy look, kind of that woodsy look. Honestly, as I was putting this together, I kept hearing the song like the Over the River and Through the Woods. For some reason, I really just felt like that song and this piece spoke to me together. And so I really just wanted to make it look as natural and woodsy as I could. So there was this little bit of moss, or I'm not even sure what this is, but it was in this package and it had this beautiful tone to it and texture. So I just glued that around the base of the trees to just give another bit of embellishment and texture to this piece. Now I'm also taking a little bit of the brown. It is almost like a reindeer moss, but it's kind of this like brown natural color. I did not glue these pieces in. However, if you want to do that, you definitely could. But the different sticks held it very well. So you can see I'm just kind of pushing it in with my scissors, or use your pliers or something, and it held it really well. Now this is completely optional. You guys are going to have to tell me if you like this piece on here or not, but I had this little reindeer from Dollar Tree, and I thought that it would be really elegant and a really fun touch to add this. You could do any other kind of piece of ornament on here. A little red truck might be really cute if you had a more realistic looking deer, or a little fox or something to set on there. But I really did like the way that the deer looked. But I'll show you both ways so you can let me know. This is just the plain way. I'm very happy with how this turned out. I think this, again, it's maybe not going to be your main centerpiece in your decor, but tucked in to bring that greenery and that woodsy look, I think is going to be beautiful. And I really do love the sparkle that was on this bundle of sticks. I really thought that was fun. Now here it is with the deer. There is just something about this. It has a little bit of more of a high-end look, I feel like, with that. But again, just the minimalist look is very beautiful too. Let me know in the comments if you like the deer or if you would leave it out. I was so surprised and so excited when I found this sled at my local thrift store for just $2. I knew that I just had to have it, and there were so many possibilities, and I truly love how this turns out. So I am just taking a wipe and making sure that I wipe everything down, making sure that it's completely clean. And then on these flat surface boards here, I am just going to give them a couple coats of white paint. You can use whatever color you would like and whatever type of paint you would like. What we're going to do is a reverse stencil on the top of this with some snowflakes. Now I only did these 3 boards in the white because those were the only areas that my stencil was going to go. However, once I go to distress this, I had wished that I had done the crossbar in some white paint. I do have a solution for that, but I'm just letting you know ahead of time that I wish I had painted that. That way when I distressed it, that white would peek through. I did use a cutting machine to cut out a couple of snowflakes, but fear not, if you do not have a cutting machine, you can just cut some snowflakes out of cardstock. You can even use like those jelly window clings that you get at Dollar Tree and place down anything to cover the white area with whatever pattern you would like, and then you'll spray paint over it or paint, and that way it will create the reverse stencil. I do take this outside to my little box spray paint studio, whatever you'd like to call it, and I just give this a really good coat. I just have to go over it once with some matte black spray paint. Now, of course, you can customize this to be whatever colors you would like. I am trying to make this more wintry than Christmassy because I do want to leave this up all the way through February if possible. So I'm just making sure that that area all over where those snowflake stencils are completely gets covered. And then after that first top layer dries, I'm going to lift it up and paint the bottom of it. I want to make sure that the complete rest of the area on this sleigh is painted black. So you can do this by hand and not have to do spray paint if you would like. That is completely optional. The next step is to bring it inside, let it dry before you bring it inside. But then we're going to take the stencil off, our little snowflake, to reveal our reverse stencil. So just so you know, when you do this, that spray paint holds down whatever you've used there pretty good if it's got an adhesive on the back. So it will take you just a minute to kind of peel that off, but just be delicate and go slow so you're not going to chip or remove any of your paint. So after I remove my stencils there, I am just taking an emery board. You can use whatever sandpaper or finger sander that you have or that you like, and I am just going over this to give it a very rustic look. What happens is it takes the little bit of layer of the black paint and it makes that white paint come shine through there, and I love how that looks. And this is where I said I had wished that I had done the crossbar in the paint so that way the white paint would show through on that. But I do just take a little, and by little I mean the littlest amount of white paint on a chip brush and kind of very lightly dry brush, so it does look like it has a little bit of white there as well. And then I very lightly wipe this down with just like a baby wipe because I don't want to smear the black paint over our snowflakes, but I do want all the dust removed. Now I just take some rope from Dollar Tree and I unravel it and take one of the strands and get some painter's tape on the end of it and make sure it is tight and as small as I can get it, because I'm going to feed it through that little hole that was provided, and then turn it around and flip it through the other side so that creates our little rope tie there. So after deciding how long I want this rope to be, I just flip the slate over and I am just tying a knot in either side. I'm just going to trim that rope down so that way I can easily get a knot tied into the little area there. And then what I'm going to do is any excess rope, just cut that as close to the knot as I can so that way that you're not left with any that's showing. And I'm just using some hot glue to make sure that those knots are not going to fray or come untied. Now to get the kink out of this rope, since it's kind of curly from being wound up in rope, I'm just spraying it with some water and then I hang it from like a door handle for like an hour or something, and it really straightens that rope out. So the longer you hang it, the straighter it will be. But look how adorable this turns out. I think this is going to be perfect for all winter long. You can even spruce it up for Christmas and then transition it into winter if you would like. I just absolutely love this. This cute little cutting board came from my local thrift store. I paid $1.50 for it. I have seen these in the antique stores. I have started to see them pop up in some thrift stores. You can get cutting boards very inexpensively at IKEA, also TJ Maxx or Home Goods. I've seen like quite a good display at a fairly decent price. Even Hobby Lobby started to carry some. So I originally wanted to paint this white, but my little brush there broke on me. And as I was getting another one, I decided that I didn't want to paint it, that I really wanted to have this have like an old farmhouse wood look to it. So I just took a baby wipe. My paint was still really wet, so I was able to kind of wipe it off. You can see it does leave a little bit of a film there, but it does end up okay when I put some wax on it to kind of stain it. Now, this is in no way going to be food safe. Where I did get it at a thrift store, I personally would not use it, as where I don't know the history of it. It's just for decor purposes only. So definitely keep that in mind as you're purchasing these. And then you can see I just put a lot of the antiquing wax on it. It's a very thick coat. I'm just using a baby wipe. You could use a sponge brush. However you wanted to apply this would be totally fine. But I did leave it a little bit thicker because I wanted it to be a little bit darker. Now, it did have some really good distressing marks on it. But if you have one that doesn't have that, like it's a brand new one you got, say at IKEA or Hobby Lobby or somewhere, and you wanted it to have kind of that old farmhouse look, I just like to take some needle nose pliers, and you can see I literally just, as Bob Ross would say, beat the devil out of it. I just bang it up and down, get some really good like pock marks in it, and then as you put your wax over it, you're just going to saturate those marks, and they're going to have a really dark color. And see I go over the edge to kind of give it a really good look there, like really distressed. So that's kind of the look that I'm going for. So that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. Now we're going to decorate this for Christmas, and I have this cute little ribbon, this little gingham check. I thought it was really cute and Christmassy. So you can see I just use my little aim of flame there to kind of seal the end of the ribbon so it won't fray. And I'm going to wrap this around. So there's definitely going to be a back to this where it's going to be sitting up like on my kitchen counter or in my china hutch or something. You're not going to see the back, but I tried to match it up as good as I can there. So that way it would still look fine if you were to see it from the back. And I just thought that was a cute little trim on the bottom there. So now I'm going to flip it over and I'm just going to tie the ribbon in a a bow at the top. And so I just do like a traditional old shoestring bow here. So you guys, nothing fancy with this. I just tie it in a knot first to get it on there. And then when I'm done tying the bow, I go ahead and trim the edges into dovetails. This ribbon frays really easily, so I did just seal those edges when I cut those little dovetails there. And then I just kind of, play around and fluff the bow to make sure that it sits how I want. And then I do end up gluing a little bit of greenery up in here. I'm just taking some picks that I had with some holiday looking greenery and just putting some hot glue underneath that. And then sticking the picks up, as you can see me here, and I grabbed some little berries to do the same thing. So as you're gluing it, you kind of can place the bow where you want it to. So if you want those tails to hit somewhere else, which I believe you'll see me do here in just a moment, you can put a little dab of glue underneath those, just a teeny one to kind of hold them in place so they're not kind of going all ski-wampus everywhere. So I love using ornaments to do different DIY projects with, or even just to use for tiered tray projects. So now that the ornaments are starting to come out in the stores, have a look at what they've got, kind of use your imagination, because there are tons of different hacks you can do. So I'm just taking this flat metal truck here and I'm just going to glue it onto the front to kind of give this that old farmhouse look. I just love the red truck look. It's been popular for a couple of years now and I'm still just absolutely loving it. So I just think this has a really good, you can see how cute this looks. I just think it's darling. Now I take a little bit of thicker twine, or you could use rope or leather, whatever you had, and just putting a little tie at the top there just to kind of make it look like an authentic cutting board. If you wanted to hang it from this, you could, or it would just be a piece just for decor purposes. But I absolutely love how this turns out. I think it is perfect for a farmhouse country Christmas in your kitchen. I think it's just, I love it. What do you guys think of this one? You guys know that I am a big fan of checking out your wedding section at your craft store. I found this darling sign there that somebody would probably just overlook, thinking, oh, I don't need a sign that says sign our guest book. And maybe you've had a wedding and you have something like this sitting around, and you can totally make it be something that you can use for your decor. So I just take it outside and I sand off that design, because I don't need anybody to sign my guest book. And I just sand it with my electric sander, and I'm going to go over the top of it with just a light brushing of just some chalk paint. I go really light at first. I do get a little bit heavier than this, but I just take my time going slowly so I don't overdo it. But I do want a very rustic look to this sign, but I wanted it to be a little bit brighter than what that background left. I am a big fan of finding different ways to make signs, and I'm going to show you guys how to print on tissue paper today. I am a big fan of this. So I'm just taking a piece of paper and a piece of tissue paper, and I am printing it where you'll have a shiny side of the tissue paper and kind of a dull side. And you want, at least I like to print on the dull side. So I print it or tape it with the shiny side towards the paper, so the ink will not slip on that shine, that it will have something on that little matte dull side to adhere to. Now this is the first time I've tried printing on an entire page like this. I'll usually just tape a little section onto the front of my paper, but I want my sign to be the whole size of my paper. So I am just taping all of the edges down. So as you saw, I put my piece of paper down and I'm just folding all of the edges over. That way I have the entire surface area of the front of the paper for my design to print on. Now I make sure that all of my edges are completely taped down, and so I just go over them. You can see how that looks here. And then I have got this entire front surface here, and I just feed this through my printer like a normal piece of paper. So you obviously want this side right here up for your design to print on, and you can see how big the design looks and how good it looks. I purchased this design from one of my favorite graphic shops on Etsy. I'll leave the link down in the description box. They have different designs for all sorts of seasons, and they're absolutely beautiful. So now I'm just carefully removing the tissue paper. It doesn't matter if the back of this tissue paper rips at all, because we're going to cut the excess off, but I obviously don't want to go just, willy-nilly and pull this off really quickly and have it end up ripping the front of the design. And also make sure that you give a fair amount of drying time to your design. I waited about an hour after I'd printed this. I was just busy doing some other DIYs, letting this dry completely. And you can kind of see how the ink goes through the tissue paper onto that normal piece of paper. So you just want to make sure to give it a little bit of drying time, so that way you don't have any problems with the ink smearing or anything. So now I'm just cutting off the excess of tissue paper all around this sign so it will fit onto the top of our surface. So I just take some Mod Podge and place that down. Now you can use glossy, you can use luster, satin, whatever type of Mod Podge you have is going to be just fine. And I just lay the tissue paper down, and then I sped this up a little bit, but I do just gently rub with my finger to kind of get as many of the bubbles and wrinkles out. Now it's tissue paper and a liquid, so you are going to get a little bit of the wrinkles, and that's totally fine, especially with the rustic look. And but you can see here, if it gets too bad, I can just kind of pull it up gently, and I can kind of reassess and adjust things if I need to kind of keep rubbing that design down to get it completely adhered to the surface. Now, if your sign has these grooves like my sign has, I'm just taking a paintbrush with a little bit of water on it, and I'm going over the top of this. This goes right through the tissue paper. I get it wet first, and then I will go back over it to kind of make those indentations in the design so it looks like this is actually part of the wood. You want to make sure to go over and seal everything in with another layer of Mod Podge. This is just going to seal in the ink. It's going to give it a little bit of like waterproofness. If water was to get splashed on it or anything, you wouldn't have any problems with that ink bleeding or anything like that. Then to help the top and the bottom of the sign where I have the excess blend in, I'm just dry brushing a little bit of antiquing wax onto there. It glides on very smoothly with that layer of Mod Podge there. And then I pay attention to the edges, and so it looks like that sign blends completely in. And then I go over the tissue paper with a little bit of the white paint that I had that I painted the sign with, just a dry brush, just to kind of give it a little bit of an aged look. So now I felt like this sign, you could leave it the way that it is, but I felt like it needed a little bit of embellishment. So I'm just tying just a normal shoestring bow out of this buffalo check ribbon that I have, and just kind of making my loops down to size of how big I want the bow. And then we're going to add some greenery and things to this. I'm just taking some leftover greenery and some little red berries from other picks that I have cut down, and I just tie a couple together, and I'm going to use some hot glue to glue the berries in each side there because the stems weren't long enough to tie together like the greenery was. And then I'm just going to, you can see, just glue those right in there, and then I will glue this to the top of the sign here. So, and I do that just using a little bit of hot glue, and then you just want to make sure to hold that in place until that completely dries. And then the same thing, just glue that bow onto the front. And then I just dovetail the ends of my bow. You can cut them at an angle, do however you like to do the ends of your bows. I did leave my tails longer so it would kind of drape down the sign. So you can see I'm just using a little bit of hot glue there. That's just going to help my tails kind of hang and droop the way that I want them to. And then I just kind of do a little bit of fluffing on the bow and everything there. And look at how absolutely darling this is. I think this is beautiful. This would be such an easy project to make and sell if you had a booth. I just think this is so cute, and I'm so excited to get to decorate with it.
This piece of wood is just left over from another project that I had, and I've been saving it, trying to think of a sign to use it for, and I'm going to make a darling little Christmas Believe sign. Now, it's rather plain the way it is, and so I'm using some of this trim that I got from Lowe's. It's very long. It's like 6 feet long or something like that, so I can't fit it all into the frame, but I just found it in the trim section, and there are a lot of different types of trim that you could get to use on the edges of signs. So I just liked the way this kind of looked like candy cane swirls to me. So I just cut it down at a 45-degree angle on each of the corners on the edges. I just measured the edges of the sign and then just cut that down either with a handsaw or a miter saw, table saw, whatever you've got. And then I'm just using some wood glue and just a teeny bit of hot glue to give that really quick hold, and then that wood glue will be that long-term hold. And I'm just going to go like a puzzle piece and glue each of the edges onto here, making sure that I line it up straight with the edge of the sign. And you can see I'm just going to push it down to make sure I get a really good firm hold there. And I just want to make sure when I'm placing the other pieces that the corners line up really well. So just pay attention to that as you're doing this. But as you can see this sign coming together here, that trim really does add such a nice touch to it. Now for my sign, I'm going to paint the entire thing white, both the flat part of the sign and then the trim as well. You just want to make sure that you are getting into the little grooves of all of your trim really well. Either pounce up and down with your brush on all of those little grooves there. Whatever you need to do, a sponge brush would work really well also.
Dollar Tree has started to have a lot of different laser cut words for different seasons and different holidays. They both have them in wood and then they also have them in tin. But I am going to use this word that says believe here, and I'm just using like a baby wipe and some red paint to go over this because I wanted to keep that crisp cleanness on the edge of the laser cut sign. Now, you can use a paint marker, which I have discovered is a lot easier than doing this method, even because you sometimes will get some snags from the baby wipes with the wood. It'll leave some of the little teeny like cloth fibers, which I'm not a huge fan of. So if you have paint markers, try that. I think that will work a little bit easier and you can be very clean with those. You can also pick up individual paint markers at the craft store if you don't want to buy an entire pack of them. But I just took the sign, I'm back to my sign here, and I just took some antiquing wax. Now you could also use some brown acrylic paint mixed with some water to do a wash on this if you wanted, but I'm going to go around this entire trim, pouncing all of that antiquing wax into those grooves. And then I'm going to wipe back the excess. I really like the aged look this gives to the sign. I feel like with all of that beautiful trim on there, you want to be able to see the detail. And if you just leave it painted solid, I mean, it looks fine, but I think a lot of that detail is lost and that custom look that you're getting from this, and it looks kind of flat. So I do suggest doing something, whether it is a darker shade of a white paint or something, or just a little bit of a darker shade or lighter shade even of the color that you had used. That's going to let you see those grooves a lot easier. But you can see I do go over again with a little bit more white paint on my brush to brighten up the raised areas. And you can see how in all of those little grooves of that little swirly trim, how it really makes those pop and you can really see those. Since I've distressed the rest of the sign, I take a fingernail file and just go along the edge of some of this word believe to peel back some of the paint, make it look a little rustic. This is just a matter of personal preference, so do as little or as much as you want. I take a little bit of antiquing wax on a baby wipe and go around the edge of the letter so that way I can have that antiqued look rather than the bright color of the wood. And I'm just using some super glue. I like to use the DAP brand. I get it at Lowe's or Home Depot. Gorilla Glue, even super glue from Dollar Tree is going to work fine, but just place a little bit on there, maybe not even as much as I did, but you're just going to center that and press it down and let that dry. I am really pleased with the outcome of this sign. I think this is so beautiful and I love the simplicity of it. It really does make a statement, and that trim, I feel like it sets the entire piece off. I would love to know if you guys have used trim like this before or if you would like to. I had so much fun with this sign. I think I'm going to start using it on some of my other signs because I really feel it gives you that custom look that takes your piece to the next level. I found this cute little teal barn star. It's kind of got that tin and then a wood frame. I found it at a yard sale and it was a really cute color, and I actually had anticipated maybe using it the color that it was. However, as it sat and stared at me from my stash over the last few months, I kind of thought I would save it for a project for Christmas, and I am so happy with how this turns out, and it will definitely get used from year to year for Christmas. But I'm just using some crimson chalk paint to cover it completely in Waverly's chalk paint, and then this metallic paint right here. Since this is tin and it did have that turquoise underneath, I didn't want to sand it to expose the tin because I was afraid the turquoise would show through. So I am just taking this, and on the high points of that tin, I'm just kind of distressing it to look like it's kind of weathered and worn. Now I am taking 2 picks that I have that you can use, just evergreen picks that you have in your stash from Dollar Tree, the craft store, anywhere. And I will wrap these 2 together to make them look like a wreath. And then once I flip them over, I will just use some floral wire and just kind of wire some of the stems together to the back. You could also use zip ties, would work. I had several people mention that to me when making one of my wreaths, and I have used that hack and it is definitely wonderful. But you'll just go around and give this just that circular wreath shape, and anywhere you feel that you need to connect it together, you'll just do that. And after I've kind of fluffed it up and everything, I have this cute little ornament. Now, I don't remember if this came from Dollar Tree or Dollar General, but it came from one of the places. It just says believe in some really sparkly writing, and I just loved it. So we're going to use that with our wreath. So I just used some hot glue and I pressed down these evergreen, I guess they're picks, but now it's a wreath, so I guess I could technically call it a wreath. But I'll just glue some hot glue onto the back of this, plenty, so it makes sure that it connects really well, and then I'll just press that down and hold that into place there. I just love that with the Christmas star and the word believe. I just think that that believe pops so cute on there, and you could embellish this any way you want with any types of ribbon or anything. In my house we do use both the black and white and red and black buffalo plaid, so the bow that was on there actually was really cute, and so I just left it, but you could obviously change it to do whatever you would like, or use a different ornament that you might have. There's tons of ornaments out there that are so cute that would look so fantastic on something like this. And I feel like a lot of us probably have one or two of these little stars kicking around that we've used because they were so popular for such a long time. And I feel like they're still really relevant, especially in your Christmas decor. But I'm just taking a little package of these little berries from Dollar Tree, and I'm just sticking them in all the way around with a little bit of hot glue so they stay. And I just go around the whole thing doing that, just kind of to what looks pleasing to my eye. I think this is going to look so cute, either propped up somewhere like on a shelf or something. It even has a little hanger on the back, or if yours doesn't have a hanger, you could affix one to the back and hang it somewhere. It is so cute. It would be cute on a front door. I absolutely love how this one turned out. What do you guys think of this? Do you guys like these stars?
This next project is a Pinterest inspired project that I saw somebody had built one, and I had out of like scrap wood for a tree, and I thought, oh, I have a Dollar Tree tree that would be perfect to do this. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the steps on this. So I just traced this Dollar Tree wood tree on some paper that had a really barnwood looking finish on it, and you can kind of see I just kind of cut it out there. And then I love Elmer's glue for projects like this. You guys have seen me use this dozens of times, if not more, and I just make sure to pay attention to the edges, so all of the edges will be down really good, and then I just go all over the surface of the tree, and then I just place this down and line it up as best as I can to make sure that no edges of the wood are showing. I just use my brayer here to make sure that it goes on completely flat. I personally like using this glue stick better than I like Mod Podge. I feel like I have a much higher success rate with it, and it is I've never had a problem with it peeling up as long as you're using the Elmer's purple glue. The Dollar Tree glue that I've seen that's like the Jot brand, I have not had as much success with that. So I just sanded the edges to make sure the paper was clear, but it did make the edge of the paper kind of look torn, or that white color. So I just went over the edge with a little antiquing wax, and while I was there, I just made sure to go over the back of it to give it a finished look. And then you can see I just put a little bit of glue into the little hole that was up there, and then to kind of fill it in, and then just put a little antiquing wax over it. So now I'm going to build a little box to go on the bottom of the tree here. So I just had this little square. They do sell little squares at Dollar Tree. This was just a scrap square that I had, and I cut some paint sticks down to be the size to go on the sides of this here. Now, if you wanted to skip this step, you could use just a little sign like that. They sell signs like that at Dollar Tree that you could use all day long and would work just fine. I just didn't have one the exact size that I wanted, and so I thought I would just kind of make my own and show you. So I did just kind of eyeball when I cut these. I kind of laid it down on my painter stick and drew the line of where I needed to cut it. I actually, these little painter sticks were thin enough that I could cut them with my scissors, but you could use like a little hand saw, miter saw, or if you have a like power miter saw, that would work as well. So now I did just have to file down one of the sides because I didn't quite get the measurement right. So that's why I was using my emery board there to kind of sand it down. And then I just give this a coat of that antiquing wax because it matches that wood on the tree absolutely perfect, I thought. And I just cover all sides of it with that wax. So now I'm just going to take this tree and I'm going to add some glue to the spots where that box will touch. And that's how I am just going to put these two together here. And so I just press that box right up against the tree, and I'm going to make this a little candle stand. So I'm just showing you that you could just put a plain candle in there and embellish just a plain candle. That's one of the faux candles that I love from Amazon. I'll link those below in my description box. But I wanted to kind of make a little jar candle to put a little tea light down into. And this jar just came from Dollar Tree. And I just just removed the lid, and I had some Dollar Tree ribbon I was showing you, but I have this ribbon that I have on my Christmas tree, and it kind of matches my decor a little bit more, and it just came from Hobby Lobby. So I'm just going to layer it with that red buffalo check on the bottom. And then actually this green ribbon, I believe, came from JoAnns. So I'm just letting you know that. But I love this green ribbon. It's not quite an evergreen. Like it's kind of like, I don't know. I just love the color of it. And so after I glue those two together, I'm just making a little sprig with some little pieces of picks that I have kind of disassembled. And I just wrap some twine around the top of those to get them all pieced together. And you could totally skip this step if you wanted to. That ribbon looks beautiful as it is. And using some twine that I tie on the top there, I'm just tying that little piece of evergreen on there, and then I will snip all of the tails off there because I decided I did not want any of that. And then I just kind of put a little glue on the back of that evergreen there so it would glue to the front and it would stay put and wouldn't move around. And then I just made a little shoestring bow to go on this, and I thought that was so cute. You could leave it like this and it would be absolutely beautiful. But I did have these little stars from Dollar Tree, and I'm sorry that you can't see it right here. You'll see it in the finished product. But I just put one of those stars at the top of the Christmas tree, and then I thought this is some baker's twine that I have, and you can get this at Dollar Tree also. But I like to buy the red and white on Amazon because you can actually get more of it for a better deal than you get at Dollar Tree. The other colors you get at Dollar Tree are definitely a better value, but the red and white you can get a little bit cheaper other places. But I just wrapped it around the tree and then just tied it off. And that way I didn't have to glue it on. So if I wanted to remove it or I didn't love how it looked, I could do that. But look at how cute that is. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. I absolutely love this. I did add a little tea light into that jar. You cannot see it in this photo, but it adds the most beautiful glow, especially with all those little ridges and marks in that jar from Dollar Tree. So if you find that jar, pick it up to do this project with because it's beautiful. I would like to thank you so much for joining me for today's compilation video. I hope that you enjoyed all of these DIYs. If you had a favorite, let me know down in the comments. I always love to hear which ones you guys like the best. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you like the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.